Hey, welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. And today, gang, we have a show for you. Shoplifting, theft, stealing. Under what condition
Banditry.
is it acceptable to steal, and from whom? Is it ever okay to steal? Is stealing actually praxis in certain cases? Um, we're going to find out, and we have brought together a team of lovely individuals to discuss this. And it should be fun. We have some first-time guests on my show, but not first time I've seen most of them. And I think to start, we are going to go to Ali. Go ahead. Is it Ali? Ali? I don't know how to say your name.
Ali.
Ali? I'll try to remember that. What's your take here? Give us a brief opening, please.
Yeah, so it's like, I'm not trying to say that like stealing is always justified. It's not that you should steal. It's not that stealing is good. I just don't necessarily love the virtue signaling over seeing someone stealing and then people going all crazy over it. Especially when it comes to like people stealing from like bigger companies or corporations, they're trying to convince you that they're the victim in the situation, when it's like it doesn't really matter. Theft and shrinkage and all of that only accounts for like 3% of the losses incurred by the company, and these are like losses that are already expected by the company, which is why insurances don't cover it. It wouldn't make any sense. Plus, the companies would already inflate those prices if that were to happen. And then like the amount of shoplifting that happens is ultimately negligible. Like, it's a victimless crime. No one's actually being affected. I know people are going to say that the workers or the community is being affected, and that's usually at the hands of the company. So I don't see how that's the shoplifter's fault. And then for people going out and like, as a customer, you have absolutely no responsibility to follow a shoplifter, report on them. If you see someone stealing, no, you didn't.
Lauren, what do you think?
Oh, okay. Well, I disagree with everything Ali said. Like, just from the get-go, everything he said was just wrong. Yes, except for the part where he tried to straw man my argument, where he's like, oh, they'll say that the communities and the workers are being hurt. Fuck yeah, I will. The communities and the workers will be getting hurt. Like, look at San Francisco, for instance. They're taking away Walgreens. They're taking away so many grocery stores. I don't want to hear another liberal use the word food desert in referenced in San Francisco ever again, because it is because of the shoplifting that you promote by not prosecuting and by turning the other way, as Ali promoted, which causes the food deserts that you struggle from, which is why y'all are obese and eat McDonald's. No, there's so many losses to the communities. That's why the kids are fat, because of the food deserts. You have so many losses to pretty much everyone involved, including the shoplifter. So yeah.
Karl Marx, not to be confused with Karl Marx. Go ahead.
Thank you, Wick. Now my opinion is that shoplifting, though it can often be unnecessary for people from certain groups, for people from others, it can be, I think pretty justified. There are 10% of Americans living in food insecurity. Plenty of people who end up going hungry, have meals, end up skipping meals because they can't afford to have more. And in a system that permits that kind of thing, especially when it affects like kids and pretty innocent people, I think shoplifting is a pretty valid way out of that. So yeah, that's my belief. Thank you for having me.
President Sunday. Long time no see.
Hey. So, as my esteemed colleague or enemy on the upper left, I'm still not entirely sure, has argued, I think quite eloquently, there is no ethical basis for stamping out shoplifting as a social ill. It is a symptom of something actually grave and unethical on the part of entities with actual power. The basic products we rely on are acquired by large retailers through vicious exploitation, and people are de facto extorted out of a basic standard of living and dignity by unnecessarily high prices. However, shoplifting under certain conditions can impact the community negatively by providing the propagandistic pretext for increased policing, and the outrageous spectacle of some instances of ridiculous or frivolous appearing acts of shoplifting can turn lower class people against one another in favor of their own surveillance. As ethically concerned commentators, I think we should turn a blind eye to shoplifting, as its root is ultimately in more systemic injustices that will not be solved by increased policing or surveillance, but by the same token, certain kinds of shoplifting that deprive other members of the community of products, for instance, or create a propagandistic boon to pro-police and surveillance advocates, should be discouraged, because these, in fact, turn the working class against each other and against their own interests by extension.
LonerBox, what you got?
As a couple of very wise debaters once said to me on the internet, even if you can imagine a perfectly ethical and no issues incestuous relationship, it's probably worth considering what would happen if this was applied as a general rule. And the general problem with incestuous relationships is that you get basically a minefield of abuse and problematic relationships, which is probably why it's better to have it as a general rule. Don't do it. By the same token, shoplifting, if normalized, can lead to shops closing. It can lead to prices going up. It can lead to what often goes with increased shoplifting is increased violence against staff and other issues. So yeah, the victims of shoplifting are usually directly or indirectly the staff and the other people shopping there. Not a good thing to do. Generally, don't do it.
Someone who hasn't been on in a while, but we're glad to have him back. Straighterade, what you got?
So my opening statement really is not to defend shoplifting, merely to state that it is not all theft or shoplifting is created equal. And to anybody who thinks that any upticks in shoplifting is the result of personal pathologies like kleptomania or OCD, that really isn't what leads people to shoplift entirely. People do shoplift out of need, of desperation, or a perceived sense of desperation or deprivation. And even earlier when somebody said that, like, about they were talking about shrinkage, which is how shoplifting is usually estimated, you said it amounts for 3%. It's actually not even that much. It's usually about 1.4%, and that's according to the National Retail Foundation. And even from there, you can break up retail shrink to 3 different sections, which is theft done by people like customers, theft done by employees, employers themselves, and then items lost to damage. So we're talking about 0.47% of things being shoplifted annually. And if anybody's even worried about that, there is currently legislation, the Combating Organized Retail Crime Act of 2023, which sits in both the Senate and the House, that is attempting to target this. So anybody who thinks that this country is suddenly going soft on crime or like punitive measures related to shoplifting, you're wrong. And wouldn't it make more sense that people who are shoplifting, would you rather hand them a jail or prison sentence for what is usually a non-violent crime, or just the resources that they probably need? So, you know, as to quote the great MLK, you know, shoplifting is the language of the unheard, you know?
Okay, so if someone is shoplifting, just give them more stuff and they will stop. Brave take. We'll see how it goes. And with that, the floor is open. Just try to no slurs, nothing toss, but otherwise go for it. What are you thinking?
Who are you talking to?
Lauren, you said that I said that. You said that I said that people shouldn't be prosecuted. That when they're caught shoplifting.
You said that you should look the other way. That you
I said if you're a customer. If you're a bystander, yeah, why are you? How are you going to prosecute anybody? Why should you go out of your way to report somebody or like?
Let me ask you this: if you watch someone commit murder against another person, are you going to call them in? Okay, you know you're not legally required to, right?
Yes.
Okay, so in the same sense, you're not legally required to call in shoplifters, but you are morally required.
I don't think you're morally required. You're morally required to call in a victim of murder or like a murder that's happening 100%. There's an actual victim like right there. Who's the victim when you're shoplifting? Who's the victim when you're shoplifting?
People that you're stealing from.
Who?
Just point of information, this is not universally the case. So, for example, I'm reading here off of TorontoDefenseLawyers.com. I don't know if that's under Section 22 of the Criminal Code of Canada. If an individual has an awareness of a crime because they've witnessed the crime or have been told the crime has occurred, and by not reporting this crime to the police service or other relevant agency, this individual is in some way aiding or abetting the crime to take place, they may be charged with counseling an offense. Sorry,
Canada is different than America. So are we talking about American law or Canadian law?
Well, we're talking generally. I'm in Canada.
Well,
he's in the UK.
We can argue the legality. I'm more interested in the morality, to be clear.
Ali, you said at the I think Ali, in the beginning of your opening statement, you said that if you see shoplifting, you didn't. Was that not what you said at the end of your statement?
Yeah.
So, but you are okay with shoplifters getting prosecuted?
If you get caught, yeah, absolutely. But
how are they going to get caught if you see shoplifting, you didn't?
Security measure. the store should have security. The security would catch the shoplifter. It's not
So
up to the
security
customer.
should catch shoplifters and they
the
should get
customer to put
prosecuted.
themselves in danger by out here trying to report, record, or follow the shoplifter. That makes no sense.
Yeah, the customers are allowed to do what they will in order to help the store owner that is the victim in this particular case. Now, it's up to each individual customer to determine how much they care about it, but if they care enough to, protect someone else's property, they're allowed to. And
then put themselves in danger.
Can I ask the panel, what is y'all's threshold before you would report shoplifting that you're seeing somebody in the commission of?
I would do anything I could to report it and prevent it.
If you saw, even if you saw like a mother stealing baby formula, would you report that?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Or like a father stealing socks?
Would you follow the person to record them?
Formula and corrupt the child.
Well, first of all, I would try to stop them. If I saw like a mother stealing formula, I'd probably stop her and try to talk to her, possibly buy it for her. But like at the same time, it would really depend on the circumstance.
What if you're attacked by the shoplifter?
What's your point?
You're assuming that this is a responsibility that we should all take, that we're morally responsible
Not
to.
what I said. I said each shoplifter has their own ability to determine how much they're willing to care about owner of the store, and they're making their own determinations based off the situation. But for you to blatantly say that all people shopping should not make it their concern, and that it should be 100%. Okay, part of living in society is that it is your concern for the people around you to make sure that you care about your general citizen.
That is an excellent point. Lauren, can I ask you a question? Would you be offended if I asked you a particular question?
Yes.
Suppose somebody had somebody locked in their basement making a product for them that they then sold on the street. Would you do anything to stop them from doing so?
Wait, stop them from keeping the person restrained?
From keeping the person locked in their basement, making a product for them that they then sell on the street. What lengths would you go to stop that person?
I would do anything in my power to help.
Anything in your power, really? So if, for example, if you walked into a Walmart and you saw boxes saying "Made in Bangladesh," and you knew that week a fire had killed all the workers inside of a Bangladeshi sweatshop supplying Walmart because they had locked the doors on them, you would do anything to stop that?
Yeah, I would do anything in my power to stop that.
Well, I mean, have you? It's been a few years now.
Yeah, I mean, I boycott certain places that do child labor.
You would just not buy from
let her
the kid in
answer
his
the
basement.
question though.
I do everything as I keep saying, I do everything within my power. Now, if I were in Bangladesh, if I had the ability to open the door, if I had the ability to call the police, I would do that as well. If I had the ability to stop them, I would do anything within my power to help the people. I try to buy responsibly. I try not to buy fast fashion.
What about
appropriating
appropriating the product to keep them from profiting from doing so in the future?
You mean copyright infringement or patent infringement?
No, he means
like
stealing.
shoplifting.
No, I meant copyright infringement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would be against copyright infringement, and I would do anything in my power.
All right, go on. Sorry, as you were.
I just want to say that when I hear someone say, if you see someone shoplifting, you didn't, that sounds like you're saying the shoplifting is okay. That's why
No, not at all. I don't think that's prescriptive. I don't think
Let
that's
Loner go. Let Loner go. Come on, we gotta give him space.
sorry.
Go ahead.
because yeah, usually when people say that, it sounds like they're saying it because they think shoplifters shouldn't get in trouble. But obviously, if you're in the shop, you don't have a moral obligation to stop the shoplifter. But it's like, if you want, the question is like, if you want to, are you okay with them just going up to security and being like, that person shoplifted? Because when you say, if you see a shoplifter, you didn't, it sounds like you're saying they shouldn't do that.
I want to respond to Box very quickly, and then I'm going to be silent.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that the cost of security outweighs the cost of the loss incurred by shoplifting. It doesn't matter. So then,
Okay. When people say you didn't see it, they're not saying prescriptively you should all go out and shoplift. What they're saying is that you, as an observer, under a situation which people are being intensely exploited, prices are rising ahead of inflation, there are reasons you cannot perceive why an individual might be doing this that might actually be really important and might actually have. Reporting it might cause significantly more negative overall, you just don't know. If you see somebody shoplifting, especially food, you didn't. That's not saying prescriptively, hey, you should go shoplift. That's saying you as an observer, all you see is the surface level act of shoplifting. Don't get involved.
Yeah, so I guess it comes to a question of threshold, because I think most people, maybe not Lauren, but most people are probably okay with, like, if you're hungry, you should stealing a loaf of bread is probably fine. If you're a mother who can't afford, if you're a mother you can't afford baby formula, I think I'm just speaking on behalf of like most people, I think, because I think most people are probably okay with stealing baby formula if like you can't afford it otherwise, and your kid's going to like be malnourished.
Why can't you go to a soup kitchen? Why can't you get food in legitimate processes? Why can't you beg for food?
I'm posing a hypothetical.
Beg for money. There's nothing wrong with asking for money.
I'm posing a hypothetical, which is when there's no alternative. So Lauren, if the only thing you can do is steal a loaf of bread or you will starve, is it okay to steal a loaf of bread?
Then that's never the only thing you could do.
Okay, but that's why it's a hypothetical. That's the point in a hypothetical. It's to demonstrate the principle.
Hypothetical. That is
okay, but Lauren,
yeah, telling people they should beg instead of steal is a wild thing to know.
And we have to. Karl Marx has been patient.
Thank you.
It's the Ebenezer Scrooge, are there not prisons argument.
But we will.
I think that's the boring part of the argument. I think the more interesting part of the argument is the fact that like it seems to be the case that a lot of shoplifting is either for profit or just because of people doing it for a kick. I think there was a study from 2008 that found that actually people who earn more than $70,000 a year are more likely to steal than people who earn less than 20,000. And people talking about as if it's like language of the unheard or some kind of praxis, I just don't buy that at all. I think normalized shoplifting hurts consumers, not
the studies I've looked at, it tends to oscillate. No. It tends to oscillate between the lowest earners and then slightly higher than that they seem to shoplift less, than slightly higher than that.
Yeah. Okay. I want to say on the point of like food soup kitchens and that kind of thing. There has been data on this in the United States, the 2020 United States Hunger Atlas. They revealed that 22.5% of feeding programs were forced to turn people away, and 11% of them reported that they didn't even have enough food to distribute. So to act like you can always just go somewhere else, especially if you're in a place with high poverty and high hunger, you will have more people dependent on it, and especially if the economy's more fucked, then you're gonna have a sudden like upturn in people going there, and it's gonna be hard to distribute enough resources. So to act like there's always another option isn't really accurate.
In America, it's very unlikely that you're going to have to steal to eat, though, right?
No, this is from America. I'm referencing American data.
No, but
I think the thing that's important to like draw attention to though is that the majority of people who shoplift, even out of need, like for example, if you need food, you need toiletries, hygienic materials, basic necessities, it's way easier to get away with stealing items that you can resell and then take that money and feed yourself or depend on it, as opposed to trying to steal a whole loaf of bread, which is worth $3.50. You can just easily conceal 3 DVDs, a video game, or something like that. The difficulty is that from the vantage point of everybody else, nobody has any way of assessing whether or not you're stealing Halo 3 or like something petty, because you're intending to like sell it to a fence or organized retail operation or just somebody on the street for cash quickly, or you're doing it for petty personal consumption.
Well, yeah, because if you say someone is stealing like all the razors because they're very small and expensive and you can sell them on the black market or whatever, well, even we can say, well, we don't know if they're doing that to feed an entire family and otherwise they'll be all malnourished and shit like that. But then that means like you should turn a blind eye to all shoplifting. Because
no, that's not what follows from what I'm saying. I'm just talking about the ambiguity of the situation, and that if we're only going to make the assessment that we know for sure this group of shoplifters is stealing based off of need, and the way that we assess that is the materials that they're actually shoplifting, and it has to be certain items like food or whatever, I think there's still going to actually be people that fall into the like shoplifting out of need category, but they're literally trying to get like the most out of the crime, right? So again, like why are they going to try to shoplift an entire carton of eggs when you can shoplift a different way and turn it into a more lucrative thing? This is why so much crime. Like,
so my question to you then, would be that if someone is stealing, like again, if someone's just stealing a bunch of like razors, then and yeah, there's a non-zero chance that they're doing it out of what you think is need, then what should happen to people who shoplift like just any product? Should they just be left to do it, or what do you think the moral right should be there?
It's very difficult, because if you're asking me like what I would do in that personal situation, and this kind of feeds off of what Ali was saying earlier, which is I think he was kind of placing, like asking people who are making the prescription that it's a moral compulsion that like you must prescribe to people to report them to security or whatever. He's like, why not? What obligation do you have to report that? Because you are not actually bound by any legal or monetary contract with that employer or whatever. If you're doing that, I guess you're just going off the kind of like a golden rule of do unto others as you would do unto you, and you don't want people to steal from you, so you should do it. Like, would I personally do it, no. I
So
wouldn't
that's the-
report anybody for shoplifting. But
So that's the
I will
easy
say
question,
I wouldn't
but-
begrudge anybody who reported them.
So yeah, that's what I'm asking is what you think should happen to them, not what you as a bystander would do yourself or what other cops, but like what should there be a penalty for stealing the entire shelf of
Or
razors
you
or
can
not?
catch
Basically,
them. Hire
should there
security if
be-
you have a problem with shoplifting.
Well,
Hmm?
they do.
Oh my
they
God.
do, and
They
they've
do.
done so. This is one of
And
the
have
problems
that cause
that I
the raise
highlight.
in prices,
So-
which causes.
What were
Wait,
you
so I
saying?
have so
Go
many
ahead, your
issues
space.
with so many things that have been said. It's hard to like. But let's just start with Straight Raid's necessity angle here, where they're in so dire need of food that they're stealing, hundreds of $100 items in order to resell later. Do you know like the process it takes to resell later? It's not instantaneous. So the determination of need, necessity, hunger, true pain and hunger until you need food is not going to be the type of planning where you're stealing large items and then reselling it later for like if you're
Lauren.
truly to the point of hunger in which you feel the need to steal.
Most
Lauren,
people don't allow
Lauren,
themselves to get to
how-
that
how-
point, though, is what I'm
how-
saying. The most majority
how-
of people won't actually wait till they're starving before they start committing
Well,
crimes.
then it's not a need thing. Then
Lauren,
it's a
Lauren, I got a
want
question
thing.
for you. How deep must an individual be able to insert their finger between their ribs before it becomes need?
You need to be dying.
There you go.
They need to be hungry enough where they're not able to withstand the hunger pain.
Really? So you mean
What?
hungry enough where they can't work, they can't clothe themselves, they can't raise their kids, they can't pay for their bills, etc., etc.? That doesn't seem very.
If they're
that
going to
doesn't seem
start
very socially
stealing,
positive. It seems like
if they're going to start
disaster.
stealing and we're going to make it morally okay to steal at this point, they're so
But it is
hungry
morally
that they
okay to
can't
steal. The
even-
things that they are
can't-
stealing are the
it's
products
not
of
morally
vast
okay to
vast
wear-
degrees of
steal.
theft on a scale no shoplifter is capable of replicating.
Why is it not okay for me to steal from you?
Why
Because
is it
there's
not
an
okay for you
immediate
to steal?
victim. There's an effect immediately to the person that you're stealing from. When you steal from
the
a store or
universe
a
opposite
corporation,
the
there's no
register of
effect
difference.
taken.
There's two people talking at once.
My bad.
Why don't you try that again?
You're counting for 3%. Like I said, 1.4 to 3% of losses incurred by these companies due to theft by outside external sources. There's no actual victim here. When you steal from Walmart, no one is
are
actually
actual
being who's being hurt when you steal from a Walmart. Or
Lauren,
from a Kroger.
Lauren,
Okay,
how
let
much
me
money
tell
do you think
let me tell
Walmart
you who's
made?
being hurt. Let me tell you who's being hurt.
No, that's not the
from
question.
Okay,
The
I wanna-
question
yeah,
is
I
how
wanna-
much
That was the
profit percentage does they make, right?
Well, let
That's
her
not what it
answer.
is.
What about our
Okay.
shareholders, Bob?
You got to let her answer. She's been a little dogpiled out. I'm going to give her some more space so she can respond to all of you. You all get a chance,
think
I
it's
promise.
talking about-
But you got to give her space. Let's go. Let's hear you.
Wait, the people who are hurt by the shoplifting in the immediate is the store owner. So like if it's a franchise store, it would be the owner of that store. And then if it's, so you could just scale this up, scale it down, right? He's laughing, but he has an issue when I individually rob him. But what if he has a
No, I don't.
family? So now it's a familial.
On guard,
No,
bring it.
now I'm saying
Yeah.
That's a joke. I do.
you don't
Keep
have
going.
it. So okay, so if I rob one person, it's an issue. If I rob a family,
But if you rob 100 people and
Hold on,
burn
man,
them
let
down
her
inside a
finish.
sweatshop,
Let her go.
Chill,
Let her
man.
go.
It's wild. I like literally can't even get a sentence in. So you're trying to say like there's some sort of scale of number of people in which it makes it okay in order to commit the theft. However, it's not
Yeah.
okay because it doesn't matter the scale. It's still affecting. And even when it's large scale, then it doesn't just affect one person, it affects a large plethora of people. And whether or not you think they're wealthy enough that they could withstand it, they're gonna have to take their stores and remove their stores from certain locations. You see this in San Francisco in particular. You see Walgreens closing, you see Nordstrom's closing.
Can we talk
So
about
who does this
Walgreens
hurt?
for a
This
second?
hurts the
Can we
employees
talk about the
of
Walgreens?
the
Okay.
employees of Nordstrom's.
She's
This
been
hurts the
monologuing
people
quickly.
who
She's had a lot of
shop
time to
at
talk. I think
Walgreens.
Max should be allowed
This
to
hurts the
reply.
people that shop at Nordstrom's. It's
Max.
happening all over the country. So
Not enough
actually,
where places are
2023
shutting down regularly. Most companies are not shutting down because of theft. Once
Okay,
again, it's only economy-
gang.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't
yeah,
know if
we-
I had the screaming capacity for this panel.
thought we were
Jesus
doing the
Christ.
best.
Shoplifting, otherwise referred to as external theft, is responsible for 37% of retail shrink. According to the most recent survey, retail shrinkage has become a $100 billion issue in
100 billion out of
2021.
how much though? How much
$3
profit?
billion a year. Wait, last year, Walmart reported $3 billion loss due to shrinkage. They also made $611 billion due to revenue. So I mean, like,
wait. If you're doing numbers, there's only one number that matters.
That's why they're shutting down stores.
There's only one number that matters because we're talking about enough shoplifting to close a store, which has happened. The question is for the Marxist economists and all that shit. Like, what's the profit rate of an average grocery retailer?
Can we talk? Wait.
Is it 10% or less?
You guys
I really, I want to.
I just need to answer that question.
I'm conflating shrinkage with shoplifting.
I haven't
Yes.
had a panel that this was this hard to moderate in a while. I did not expect this, but we'll go with it.
I'm sorry we disappointed
That's a
you,
good
Vic.
question. No, you haven't disappointed me. This is good.
My understanding of the data on Walgreens is that they overpaid security. They ramped up the security to a crazy amount, and that was actually the cause of them.
Well,
Also,
I don't even know
the-
what Max is about to
Overspent.
say,
Sorry,
so
the
let's let Max-
Walgreens
Overhauling.
executive said that he complained too much. They literally they shut down. They said in January this is not petty theft. It's actually gangs going into our stores and stealing stuff. It's a real issue. And then a year later, he rolled that back and he said probably we put in too much and we might step back a little bit from that. He said of security staffing, the company has found private security guards to be largely ineffective in deterring theft. So instead, it's putting up more and more enforcement officers. They basically said that they bitch too much, and Walgreens has more loses more to theft than like other companies do, right? So
This goes against your argument because Ali was saying that the solution to all of this is, well, if you're having issues with theft, then hire more security. Well, if the security is ineffective and it's costly.
well, the solution isn't to do that though. You're approaching the issue at the head, right? We need to take it at the stem. There's a reason that like a lot of these people are shoplifting, right? They're not just doing it out of nowhere. Like there are.
Shoplifting is done by people who are like starving though, because if you look at the most commonly shoplifted goods, it's like games, laptops, alcohol, like
If
meat,
we look at the
cheese,
most-
coffee.
Yeah, meat, cheese, coffee, fucking baby formula, that kind of thing. There are a lot of things that are stolen and are very, very necessary.
Is coffee necessary?
Yes.
Is coffee?
Alcohol
Yes, for a lot of
necessary?
people.
Just
Yes,
really
if they have
quick,
night
stop.
shifts, coffee will be
Everyone,
necessary.
This
LonerBox.
is
Yeah.
this is a thing that I did look up and I have confirmed. Baby
Clothes
formula
aren't necessary.
is
We can
usually-
work without
is used to
clothes.
cut drugs.
True.
Our
They steal
forefathers did
baby-
so. They worked in the mines,
I will
dangling.
mute you because no one's listening to me when I'm talking, and you're not going to do that to me. Okay, so yeah, baby formula is stolen primarily to cut drugs. Most of the people stealing baby formula aren't trying to feed their babies. They're doing it because it's a safe, effective way to cut their drugs so they actually have less drug to sell. That's why
What's
they're
the
doing
source?
Yeah, what is
it.
the
I can
source
get
on
it
that?
to you later.
How would you determine this?
Aaron, I have a
Good.
question for Aaron.
How would?
Wait,
Yeah.
Lauren, I had one for you. Do you think that Walgreens is more likely to shut down because of competitors like Amazon or because of loss incurred through retail theft?
Loss incurred through retail theft in certain locations, especially.
Okay, I
like,
disagree. I
like
think
where
what is putting
where I
Walgreens out of
just
business
was-
is other
where I
competitors
just
like
was
e-commerce and
yesterday,
Amazon.
I literally walked into a Walgreens yesterday and interviewed the person who worked.
I don't
there,
care about
like,
your
while we
anecdotes.
were
No one here
The
cares about your
Walgreens in my
anecdotes.
neighborhoods are doing fine.
Yeah, if I told
Aaron,
you
Aaron, why haven't you shoplifted?
because I have no need to.
Coward.
Okay, then Allie,
Why haven't you shoplifted?
I'm not gonna lie. There have been times
Wait,
where
I want
didn't-
to wait really quick. I want to know why Lauren hasn't shoplifted before.
Because I'm morally against it.
So brave. Okay,
Whoa.
Allie, continue.
or like
Lauren, are you
Okay, well-
morally against purchasing products from companies that engage in slave labor to supply their
Yes.
shelves?
Yeah.
oh,
but
but
you-
are you are
But you do.
Like,
But you do.
no, I don't.
Yes, you do.
Where's your
It's
Where's your
impossible
shirt
to
from?
say.
What brand is the jacket you're wearing right now, or the sweater, whatever it is?
This is from California Aggies. This is my UC
California
Davis
Aggies.
sweater.
Research time.
Yeah.
How do you spell that?
I'm just going
Okay,
to be
well-
quick and say that like child labor has a lot
This is
less
my
to do with
UC
most
Davis
consumer goods than you
sweater.
guys all think. But okay,
No, well, it's just child
you can
labor,
look at the
slave
example
labor.
from you can look at the example of New York City. Like I think in New York City, I think like a third of the shoplifting arrests involved like less than 350 people. So yeah, you can say, but like the people who are like I guess the not so anti-shoplifting side, what do you think should be done about that? Because so far from Aaron,
They've
we've
been
got like,
arrested- they were
well, I
arrested over
wouldn't say anything about it, but I don't know what.
6,000
Let Laura
I don't
really
get
quick.
it.
Aren't these just
So
the
my
repeat
question for you guys
shoplifters?
is- for these-
Then you can
so I
answer it. Loner,
So I
go
guess
ahead.
from Aaron, I got something that sounded like kind of like a vague. Well, we don't know if they're doing it to feed families or to just make a profit, so I wouldn't do anything. But what do you think
The other
should
reason
be
why
done
is
to them?
I'm
That's
not
I
going.
never got an
I'm
answer to
not
that
going to
question.
risk my. I'm not going to risk
No,
my
no.
personal safety to stop a shoplifter. I have
I'm
no
not
idea
asking-
if they're armed or not.
So I got one answer.
But
They
he's
should be jailed.
nuts.
I agree. So Karl Marx, should they be jailed?
Should they be jailed? Wait.
Shoplifters, yeah.
Repeat shoplifters? No,
People
I
who
mean, you should
shoplift
probably
en
find a
masse, yeah.
different solution, right?
Okay, Aaron?
That's our solution.
repeat the question?
The shoplifters who are making up like a third of the arrests in New York City, should they be jailed or what should be done to them?
No, I don't support punitive measures for nonviolent offenses usually, and the majority of shoplifting is not done through violent means. And I'm also not going to conflate like armed robbery with shoplifting. Armed robbery is shoplifting.
So should they be fined?
Hold on, I have a question. So
I
Aaron,
want to
you
respond to
don't support
Loner.
any...
I still want to respond to Loner. Can I?
You all get a chance. We'll go
Can I
in order.
first?
Loner's asking everyone the question. He's about to ask you next. All you had to do is wait. Loner, continue asking your question.
Yeah, so I'm asking then, like, should they be fined then, or what? Do you think there should be any deterrence at all, or is it just like we just accept it and fuck the corporations?
No,
Yeah, make them
fines,
pay more
community
money.
service. There's other mechanisms of deterring crime, but a lot of these are just band-aid solutions. In general, I don't support carceral solutions to like most crime. No.
Karl Marx?
What if people should go to prison? I already answered that, right? I mean,
No, but
you
like
should-
what else in place of prison if you're not?
Oh, what else in place of prison? Oh, like
Yeah.
rehabilitative measures. I mean, you have like 10% of the American population living in food insecurity. I think these people, given that 70% of shoplifters, according to the data that I've got here, are people who are concerned about money. I think if you do actually help them out to get the stuff that they need, they'll probably be better off. But a lot of like the food programs, welfare programs in America are like dysfunctional and thus end up leading to more crime, right? So you need to fix these things in order to reduce it.
Okay, Sunday. Go ahead.
What should be done to people who shoplift? We're not necessarily taking a moral status like from the eye of God when we're saying that something should be done to people who shoplift or something shouldn't be done to people who shoplift. What we are saying is that in a situation in which we as individual subjects with our limited understanding of the individuals involved, their perspective and their circumstance, etc., you are risking causing somebody in a vulnerable situation extreme levels of irreparable harm if you turn them in. You are not risking that if you don't. That's the key distinction. Nobody is saying that therefore nothing should be done to these people. The stores have their own self-interest. You can't argue that they should act against it. Obviously, from the vantage of their own survival, they have to act in a way that stops shoplifting, etc., etc. There's no argument against that. Like, it is what it is. But from the vantage of someone who presumably has empathy for the average human being, if you don't know the exact circumstances of the individual who is stealing food or whatever off the shelf, because all of these things, that's the nature of commodities, they could be turned into food down the line or turned into the conditions of working or being a productive or functional member of society. Don't. There's no purpose to, for two reasons. First of all, the aforementioned, you don't know what damage you're doing to that individual or to other individuals upon whom they depend. Secondly, you're doing so in the defense of organizations whose product and whose place on this earth are not mandated by God. They are the product of either past deprivations or ongoing ones. Case in point, once again, I'm going to refer to this over and over again. Most of our clothing, the reason why it's so cheap and why we can have like 10 different shirts of the same kind for under $100 is because somebody in some really hot place in some dingy room was sewing that for pennies on the hour.
I respond to that.
You may.
Please, be my guest.
And
Can I
then
make a point
I
after
know
that?
that. Yep. Then. So here's what we're gonna do. Loner is gonna have some back and forth with Sunday for a little bit. Then we're gonna Max. Then we're going to Lauren.
I'm
Then we're
too
going
tough
to
for this.
Schrader Aid. Because Schrader Aid has a
So-
question for Loner too.
I'll try to be succinct, but I think, yeah, I know that the default progressive response to any kind of crime is just that it has to be because of some kind of like poverty or desperation or something like that. But the fact is that one other thing that any criminologist will agree on that causes certain crimes to increase is if they can do it and get away with it, which seems to be the case with shoplifting. Like, it seems to be the most common complaint you hear from every retailer or other customers or communities is that it's very easy to just go into a shop and just lift like thousands of dollars or pounds worth of stuff and then fuck off. And that is a problem. And the people who suffer for that are not the corporations. They can just raise their prices. It's that cost gets offset to other customers. It might result in shops closing, which has happened, and that means that people have to go further away to get their food. So it affects the people around them. It affects the people in their community.
I agree
and
with you.
with crime situations like that, you can see this with other situations like the knife epidemic in Glasgow, for example, like in the 2000s. Like the way that you can also respond to these crime things is not just assume it's all out of need or desperation. You can also say that there is a level of deterrence deterrence that's not there. And you can take, for example, the 1/3 of shoplifting arrests that came from just 300 people in New York City, and either use some kind of punitive measure to set an example, whether that's like a very hefty fine to let people know you can't just shoplift for a living, or to jail them.
Sure. Well, fundamentally, what we're dealing with is an interaction between two bodies of people, one of whom has definitely committed theft for the sake of profit alone, one of which that's ambiguous. And so that's the nature of my argumentation. One of the reasons why in my opening statement I point out that there are types of shoplifting that are frivolous or create the spectacle that is then used propagandistically to increase surveillance upon their communities generally, or to deprive their fellow members of product. I don't know if I mentioned that specifically, but like obviously, yeah, of course, just like any human action, it's going to have to be constrained by certain limits for it to be within the bounds of ethicality, but that's not going to be within the bounds of the law. Case in point, Walmart operates legally, yet once again it employs slavery. I think you would agree with this. So I don't think we're necessarily in disagreement. I think what we're in disagreement with is that there is a commensurateness, if that's a word, between people abiding by the law when it comes to the acquisition of products in society and ethicality. I think the one common thread between everybody on this side of the argument is that that is deeply ambiguous, and therefore, if there is a single, if there is a single response that follows from reporting people who you observe at only the surface level of having engaged in that acquisition, it would be more responsible to not report them than to do so, because while you may, in the case of a shoplifter, catch somebody who is engaging in some kind of unjust harm against another person, you absolutely are in the case of vying for the person who runs the store.
If you see something, say something. Seems to counteract that. But Max, you're up.
If you see
Go
something,
ahead.
say something seems to counteract that. What?
I wanted to make a point.
Well, hang on, Wick. Well, no,
Okay.
you responded to that. You're not
Max,
a moderator
go
anymore.
ahead.
You're a participant. What did you say?
I'm fucking around with you, Max.
But what did you mean? But what did you mean, Wick?
I'm making a quip so people give me money. Go ahead. Max.
Okay, I wanted to make note, because you said that baby formula is often stolen for drugs. I want to make note that single mothers are the highest proportion of people living in food insecurity. 1 in 4 households of a single mother with a child is food insecure, and then double that when you like compare it to Black and Hispanic households. So to act like there isn't any way that this baby formula is actually being stolen for babies or whatever is very silly, and I assume the majority of it probably is.
Are they the ones shoplifting? Do you have any data that shows that the people that you're referring to, the single mothers in those situations, are the ones shoplifting the baby formula?
Yeah, I've got data proving that people who are conscious about money, people who are hungry, are more likely to end up stealing, and thus single mothers who are experiencing food insecurity would be a pretty prime demographic for that.
When you did that,
They're not the ones who are stealing trolleys full of baby formula, are they?
I don't really see your
That's probably
point.
the people who are doing it to sell drugs, right? or to
I
sell
don't
on the black
think
market.
most people are stealing trolleys of baby formula.
Like the way that a lot of shoplifting stats are
That's
even
what
compiled is
people
looking at
that's
like
what people are
organized
talking about.
retail
Like,
theft.
You're not gonna be able
People,
to
wait,
get
you're telling me
proper
people are
stats on any
talking
of
about a
this?
sensationalistic thing and they're like talking about how crazy it is? I mean, obviously, if there's like a video of someone stealing a whole trolley of meat, it's gonna go like popular on the internet. That's not what happens on a like day-to-day basis though, most of the time. This is
Complaint that most of these retailers and staff
time.
members and people in communities are making is that people are able to shoplift right now with impunity because there aren't enough measures to stop them from doing it or to prosecute them afterwards.
Wait,
Okay,
can
Lauren,
I
go ahead.
come in
When
here?
you say responsibility,
In a moment, I'm going to let Lauren, then Straighter Aid, you're next, I promise.
Okay.
Sunday, I'm looking at
The
you. We're going to let the
customer-
woman speak. Okay, don't overtalk the woman. Lauren, go ahead, then Straighter Aid.
First of all, by responsibility, it's the responsibility. Like, it's not your
Madam.
responsibility as a witness.
Sorry, continue.
If you witness a murder, it's not your responsibility to call it in, but it would make you a morally better person. Same as the customers in this store. So it's not their responsibility. But once
Only
again, they
because there's
probably
someone
could. They
directly
want
being
to keep
affected.
people.
Only because there's someone being
Anyway, as I was
directly
saying,
affected. There's no
I'm
effect
talking.
happening.
Okay.
Lauren.
So now, my other issue, at least Allie and I can agree that these people should be locked up, especially if they're continuously doing.
Locked up. What is
if
this?
they're-
If they get caught.
Execute them.
Stop it, please. Okay, fine, fuck. I'm going to mute everyone except for the person
You're
talking.
fucking-
Lauren, Go ahead.
Better than at least Straight, who says that no one should be in jail as long as it's a non-violent crime, which I guess means she is pro everyone for J6 who was non-violent and who just trespassed, right?
Yeah.
So I guess all of them should be free from jail according to Straight. Thank you for the conservative support.
The idiots
Billy.
who
I
were walking
appreciate-
through gawking because they were surprised to be in the building. Yeah, I agree. The people who broke in and like defecate on the desk, maybe not.
What were the people chanting
that's
outside at Gen
non-violent.
6?
That's non-violent. That is
They were
non-violent.
invading a
Great
building. That is the
thing.
definition of
They
violence.
They literally killed
Violation.
cops. Don't you like cops?
I guess Straight
It's
wants
legally
them free.
non-violent to trespass, but
Yeah.
It's not to go in and say you want to like kill people.
Max, I want to hear Max's statement that Straight
Several
Race Max,
people.
Max. Yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
yeah, several
Then we'll go
people. There were large crowds outside at January 6th chanting that they want to like kill people. I don't understand how you're going to compare like January 6th and then somebody stealing to feed their baby. If you're a mother and you have a child and that child has to skip a meal every couple days because you can't afford to get more, see, according to you, this would be enough to not want to steal. Would you then put your child in the position where they're going to end up developing worse, experiencing a worse life, be more unhappy, be more depressed, be more likely to kill themselves as a consequence of you being poor and then inflicting that on your child because you're too scared to steal and take matters into your own hands?
I think not to
Wait, you're saying
defend
that
it.
you're
No, let her answer. I want to hear it.
No,
Let me
Lauren would sooner let her child die before she
respond.
steals.
Let me respond. So, what you're saying doesn't make any sense because if it's a starving mother who really just cares about feeding their kids, we have this wonderful system called food stamps, right, in America. And if
Let's get into that.
Those are
how
easy to
many
get.
Actually, let's talk about food stamps. We can do that.
Talk about the cost of
come on,
the
Leon,
foods
I wanna
on the
understand.
food stamps too.
Okay, what's happening
Whatever.
is you got like 4 people yelling at her every time she speaks, and so no one can understand what she's
Can I
saying.
respond to the food stamps point really quickly?
Well, once she's done with her point, you may.
Okay,
Well,
go on.
you wanted to say that I was comparing starving mothers just feeding their babies who are skipping every other meal because blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Okay, I am comparing the ravage shoplifting epidemic in which there are about a third of these shoplifting are from the same repetitive shoplifters over and over and over again. And these people have made it their jobs to do it. They are not starving. They are not needy, and then you want to lock away the January 6th
The obese
grandmas
welfare
for
queens.
walking
Okay,
around,
I'm not
even
gonna-
knowing that it was.
Okay, go on. No, go on.
And okay, I was
Those
in San-
repeat
when I was in
offenders
San
are only in New York City, as far as I know, but continue.
Not true.
No,
Not
it's-
true. I was
it's-
in San Francisco last night. Watch my story on Instagram.
No one cares
I
what you
watched-
personally saw or didn't see, Laura.
That's
an
reliable
anecdote.
data.
No, wait,
There are a
the
lot of
stat
people
isn't
when they
just
pay
that's
you
not that's just
money.
the stat from New York. It doesn't mean that's probably the only place it's happening. No, and actually coming back
can
to the
confirm.
baby formula, you can look on Google. Like there are stories from this going back to 2005. Like baby formula has been a staple for like
There
gangs
were
for a really long
stories
time when it
about.
comes to drugs.
There were stories.
I'm just saying, I think it's probably reasonable that the average civilian and the average human being can notice the difference between a mother stealing a ball of baby formula for a baby who's malnourished versus a fucking gang going in and lifting the
Wait.
entire
I
store.
mean, Lauren
Here,
already
Okay.
said that she would turn in that mother.
Unless the mother is actually just running a
Lauren
drug
has
industry.
already
just
said
Okay.
that she would.
Okay, LonerBox, you said that there are a ton of people. There are a ton of stories about how baby formula is sold to make drugs. Like there haven't ever been sensationalistic drug stories in the media. Like, do you know about Jenkum? The thing that there was like tons of stories about where people were like huffing shit to get high, and it happened in like poor countries. Not actually a thing. Not actually a widespread thing. Totally overblown. Totally like blown out of proportion by the media. You cannot be like citing news articles existing as a trustworthy source. Secondly, I want to note about food
what should I
stamps.
trust then? If a news article says that this is a problem
Data,
that's been brought
actual
up in
data,
Congress
like
and by-
actual information that's like actually fucking like statistical and isn't just
Yeah,
like
not just
basically
sensationalist
anecdotes, which is
reporting.
like story.
Didn't,
What news stories are?
Didn't Wick's point say that most of the baby formula stolen is by gangs? Most of
Yeah,
the
I think
actual
Wick is
quantity of
wrong.
formula
stories
I
stolen.
said
didn't
why
give
Wick
me the
is wrong
source,
as
to be
well
fair.
because
No,
mothers
you
are
said-
like the
you didn't
highest
say- you didn't
proportion of people who have
actually-
food
you didn't-
insecurity.
That you realize that doesn't actually refute what Wick says. If more mothers are stealing less quantities of baby formula and the gangs are stealing higher quantities, that means most of the formula is stolen by gangs, not by mothers.
How do we know that the gangs are stealing more though? Do we have any data to prove that, or is that just being said?
That's what Wick stated. I don't know. Wick
I've
can
got
give
a
you the data.
question
That's what he
that's pertinent
said,
to this.
and you didn't refute it.
I have a question that's pertinent to this, and I'm curious. Wick, by what methodology would you determine the exact usage of this baby formula? How on earth have you determined the percentage
you
of it
ask
that is
them?
used towards
We
drugs?
can make some inferences. If you have 20 different people all dressed in ski masks coming in and stealing this baby formula, it's
But
possible
hang on.
that they are
That's not
an
shoplifting.
altruistic
That's not
group
petty theft.
that are
That's not what we're talking about,
demonstrating,
though.
that are-
That's not-
that
we're
are
talking about
That's not what we're talking
distributing
about, though.
others in the
Wick,
community.
Wick, we're
That's
not talking about a
possible.
baby
That is
formula
not
heist.
what
We're
we're
talking
talking
about
about, though.
shoplifting. We're talking about shoplifting, not an organized heist. We're not talking about Daniel
I'm a
Ocean
petty
coming in for the
theft.
baby formula trope.
Wick, I wanted to ask LonerBox a question.
Please, go ahead.
Okay, so we're already presupposing that shoplifting only occurs at the hands of like customers, but it can also occur at the hands of like employers or employees of the businesses themselves. So I ask you, if you were at like a CVS or a Walmart and you saw an employee shoplift something, you saw them conceal an item, put something in their like pants, shorts, or whatever, try to steal it, would you report that employee to their manager, knowing that it was probably going to lead to their termination? And probably if they were convicted or whatever, like in Texas, it's a crime of moral turpitude, and if you're tried and convicted for something like that, or convicted of a crime like that, you can no longer work for retail ever again. So
No,
would you report that like stealing employee?
My position is generally like the way that they deal with like other kind of like gang crime epidemics is that they go for the big offenders. Like I think the FBI defines it as organized retail theft is if you steal like $5,000 or more worth of things, and
Yeah,
that's like
felony
that's what
amount.
I would go for. Yeah, I don't
but
really
you-
care that much personally about a shoplifter lifting like a ball of juice. Like
Okay, but like I mean an employee for sure. If you saw an employee doing it, you wouldn't say anything.
no, I wouldn't say anything. No.
If you saw like a regular patron or whatever, you wouldn't.
No, and I can just shorten it really quickly by saying that like most of the people who complain about this aren't really kicking up that much of a fuss about crimes like that. They're more bothered about the fact that people go in there and lift trolleys worth of stuff to sell, like either on the black market or to
spectacle,
scalp people
yeah.
and shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be the thing that retailers are complaining about as well, about how easy it is to just walk in,
And
lift
I
like
do
thousands of dollars
I
worth
do
of
wanna
stuff, then
be
fuck
clear
off.
that
Right.
That's their fault, isn't
panel,
it?
The reason that this panel came across
Yeah.
in the first place
Yeah, it is
is
their
due
fault,
to
yeah.
discourse over someone lifting
Yes, can I?
thousands of
and
dollars.
if I can,
of meat. Yeah.
Okay, the
if I
Twitter
can,
post that
if I
you
can,
saw-
hang on. If I can, like, build a little bit of a bridge here potentially. One of my objections is someone I still don't know what side I am on in this, but I think I'm more on straight rate and this one side. One of the issues with the meat lady is not just that she was shoplifting; it's that she was shoplifting in a manner that created a spectacle that generated contempt from within the working class. And so one of the issues that I have with it is that it created a situation where you had people who were obviously underpaid working for, was it Walgreens or what was this organization that she was stealing from? They were the ones who were videotaping or recording her and trying to prevent her from loading her car with the meat. Moreover, she also prevented other people, shoplifters included, from accessing that meat themselves. And so there is nonetheless, regardless of the ethicality of shoplifting generally, there are more and less ethical ways to engage in it and more or less ethical ends for it. I think we all more or less agree on that. Am I correct?
Yep.
I do.
Yeah.
Lauren doesn't. Can you explain why not, Lauren? You were the odd one out here. Go ahead, Lauren. Give her some space. Oh, I swear to God, Sunday, if you talk in the next 5 seconds, I'm going to mute you. Go ahead, Lauren.
Well,
Blah, 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 blah.
can you
Do it, coward.
repeat exactly what you said, Sunday, just so that I can.
I am flattered. I am flattered by your confidence in my powers of recollection, but unfortunately I cannot. Yeah, sorry. You're up a creek, alas.
Well, I can paraphrase if you don't mind.
Yeah,
right?
I guess.
Yeah.
So what I saw you shaking your head at was the fact that Sunday said that there are more ethical ways to steal than there are less ethical ways to steal, and that we aren't. Is everyone in agreement that someone stealing just
I kind of come from the Kantian ethics standpoint, where if something is immoral, it is immoral, and so stealing is immoral. It's immoral at any level, whether it's small or large. I heard, who did I hear bring up something along those lines? I think it was.
Yes. Who brought up the categorical imperative? Anyone?
It
I'm
was
actually open with real
LonerBox brought
consequentialism,
up-
so yeah, it's similar.
Consequentialism
LonerBox
isn't
brought that up
Kantian.
earlier. Repeat what you said, Straight Raid.
You said somebody brought this up earlier, and I said, yes. Who brought up the Kantian categorical imperative? And LonerBox, I think what the framework you're talking about isn't Kantian at all.
No, it
Like-
is.
For the most part, and essentially you, LonerBox, for the most part, if something is unethical at most levels, and you just shouldn't do it at any level, because if it's generally accepted by society, then it would be a negative impact on society. So for instance, if everybody took the idea that it is not morally corrupt to shoplift and that it was okay to shoplift, then everybody would shoplift and there would not be like a functioning retail society.
Nobody is arguing that shoplifting as a prescription is a moral maxim we should adhere to. What people are arguing is that increasing harm and poverty and misery in the world is avoiding that is a moral maxim that we should subscribe to. And so given the circumstance that we do not know the circumstances under which people are shoplifting, it would behoove us to be cautious when we start appealing to the state to start putting its boot down on people who are engaging in that. That's the argument.
Can I ask something?
Could I extend that point?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I mean, the reason that things like shoplifting are viewed as unethical is because you shouldn't take what you don't need, right? If we're like applying that to a lot of people, there are plenty of people who shoplift who don't need to be doing so, and I do agree that we should probably try and stop those people. But still, there are plenty of people who that doesn't apply to and who do need to have the stuff. And also, if there are companies like supermarkets keeping a bunch of shit that they don't necessarily need and they're going to end up throwing it out, how is that ultimately more ethical than somebody else taking that and then feeding it to their child, right?
I mean,
I
Lauren would
just
rather
wanna-
have a society where people panhandle before they steal stuff that gets thrown out.
Loner,
you know?
go ahead.
I just wanted to throw in a
I'd rather have
yeah,
a
don't worry.
society where people ask their neighbors for help before they steal from their neighbors, Aaron. What a
Yeah,
wild
homeless
concept.
people
Not stealing from your
panhandling on the
neighbors.
streets en masse. I'm not talking about that.
Loner,
On
please.
that.
I just wanted to throw in a stat because it was challenged earlier that within about a year, it's anything between $15 billion and $30 billion worth of goods are lost just from organized retail theft. So, and one of the top items is formula. So it's not like a sensationalist, it's one of the problems. I don't know why you would assume it was just immediately a sensationalist, because I mentioned I saw lots of.
Well, maybe because the
articles
price
about
went
it,
up and they can sell it on the black market. I mean, I don't think that to act like that's the only,
This
that
is
it's
from
only going to be used for
2011.
drugs.
This is from 2011. That's why I said the stories from this go back to 2005. Yeah, it's a thing that gangs like to do. Yeah.
The increase in prices is not due to theft. There's not enough theft happening to these
It's
companies
not, it's-
for them to be the increase.
Absolutely
Of
is.
Hang on.
Yes, it is.
Loss. Hang on. At whatever negligible amount, this is indisputable. Any kind of loss will contribute to increased prices. The question is whether it's determinative. That's ambiguous, but that's not really up for debate. Like, obviously, if you
Also,
lose product without getting
Karl Max,
profit from it,
I've been paid. I've been paid
prices.
to call you stupid and
Nice.
personally insult you.
Who was that from?
I would have done it for
Tell
free.
me.
I wouldn't have meant it
From
because
Doobie.
they're brilliant, but
specifically.
From
Doobie
Doobie?
also sent me
Doobie?
yes, Doobie. Doobie's also
Why?
sent me a
Wait, how much do I have to pay you to steal something?
Is this the
More
Doobie
than
I
you
would
have.
know? I know there's a Doobie
I
on
don't
a
know if
big
you know it's a
Discord
Doobie.
debate
No, I
server.
don't care. They paid me to do it. I did it. And also, he wants me to ask you whether or not why you trust data and not journalists when it has been shown, and he linked me.
I
a
trust
source
journalists that
where
report on
people-
data
People
properly.
stole falsified data all the time, or not all the time, but at
but
least
journalists
it's for-
don't.
Yeah.
Wait,
What?
yeah, you're saying journalists are more reliable? Look,
I'm not
this
saying
is
anything. I was paid money to tell you this. I did. My job is done.
I respect
You're a
that.
lackey,
I
Wick.
respect that deeply. I don't really see the point in believing in journalists over empirical data. I believe journalists when they provide empirical data. You need to combine the two. You can't just be saying journalists are correct or data is wrong because it can be falsified sometimes.
Dude,
That's
you
pretty
recommended
retarded.
Mistborn to me. You recommended
Whoa.
Mistborn to me. How could you? How could you take this
Mistborn's
stance?
a good
Unbelievable.
book. Anyway,
I think it's
regardless,
more just because I mentioned talking points that I heard from journalists who were talking about an epidemic, and you just immediately dismissed it as sensationalist. That might be why he's upset about it. I don't know.
Well, because
Might
journalists
be.
are
Oh,
necessarily
well, yeah,
reliable.
because
I wanna
journalists do a lot of
direct this conversation
sensationalism.
a little bit. I want to direct this conversation a little bit. For those of you on the more, not to say pro-stealing side, but
Permissive.
the more permissive side of these things, would it be morally permissible to steal directly from Walmart, the owners of Walmart's house? Like,
No.
if you
I mean-
were able to go into the owner specifically's house
No.
and steal from
No.
them, Would it be
No.
more permissible? Why not?
No.
I mean, it
Is it direct
depends.
effect to the
Do they
person?
notice? If they don't notice, I think it would be fine because it would affect, like, it probably
I
wouldn't
don't
affect
think
their
the
morality,
issue is
but-
noticing. I don't think ownership is limited at the point of noticing that your possessions have been stolen. I think the reason though would be because it's not hitting them at the point where there is some intrinsic connection between the thing that you are stealing and the fact of it being a functional part of the extortion of the community. The influence of places like Walmart, for example, on local communities and local retail is known, or on the exploitation that gives them their product. At that point, you are literally just violating a general norm against breaking and entering into people's personal abodes. And I think that's a dangerous precedent to set.
It's also
That's
the
probably
fact that
fair.
for breaking into someone's house as well as for shoplifting, both of these crimes correlate with an increase in physical attacks as well. So as shoplifting went up in the UK, so too did physical assaults and antisocial behavior and verbal
Now,
abuse.
would
so
they deserve it is a different question. Yes, they would, absolutely.
but that's what I'm asking is like because it seems to be when I was hearing if you see a shoplifter you didn't, and that kind of Twitter response was some people saying that, well, we have to probably just assume that they're doing it out of necessity, and if they're not, it's okay anyway because fuck corporations.
Well, because
And
it's
that's why I maybe want to ask, like,
Loner, finish.
even with what you've been saying, like Karl Marx, like if you're saying like even like a gang stealing baby formula to make drugs, like, well, if we hate Walmart, like, is it better that Walmart just Walmart loses it anyway, or what? Like, what would you say to that?
I mean, I think people should have the things they need to have. If Walmart is keeping that, is preventing that from being able to get to people by way of permitting people to steal a shit ton of it, or by way of making it unaffordable to people, then I think it's fine for people to take it, right?
So that's why I asked you about gangs who are doing it to make drugs or to just sell on the black market.
Well, if gangs are doing it to sell it on the black market and they're getting it to mothers for a more affordable price, then that's fine. I don't really know how much these are actually being used to make drugs, though, because what I've looked at about it, you can cut drugs with a lot of things, and baby formula is one of the more expensive ones, and you probably wouldn't necessarily go for
They're
that.
stealing it. It costs.
Can I respond very quickly? In the event that you have people in masks coming in and you see them in an organized fashion acquiring these things, as far as I'm concerned, it's ethically neutral whether or not you report them, because you're dealing with people who are essentially engaging in precisely the same kind of activity as Walmart is, albeit against Walmart. I have more condemnation for Walmart on that front, but you're not dealing with people who are definable by individual need. If you're talking about like a mother, for example, who slips a package of formula into her purse or something like that, I would say in that case you look away. Like that seems like pretty clear cut to me. I don't know. I don't think, like, one of the things that I
really quick, Sunday, to interrupt you. I think the underlying assumption here is that does everybody think that Walmart has the monopoly on these goods by force or through legitimate means?
Well, everything is a monopoly on anything by force, but I think the point that I'm getting to, and one of the real sticking points here that's not really being stated explicitly, is that, and this is the reason why LonerBox had the pseudo-Kantian point earlier, is that if you allow something indefinitely, you end up in a situation where even if global communism is achieved, you still have a situation where people are judging whether or not they respect the right of a person to their personal belongings based upon whether or not they can draw a line between their owning that thing now and some active exploitation of it.
Is it not looking out for your community to report people who are stealing from stores and knowing that that theft at least has a possibility of leading to those stores and those services no longer being provided in your community? Lauren, I want you to go first, and then we'll go around. So, Lauren, what do you think?
Yeah, you absolutely have if you want the best for your community and for the store owners in your community, then you should report people who you see committing any crimes, including theft or murder, for that matter.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure. Does it not behoove you as a member of community to report theft against people who are providing, or companies who are providing services to your community? Why or why not?
Well, it depends on how those services are provided, right? If those services, as we're under capitalism, most services are going to be behind a paywall, right? So if they're providing stuff, but only to like a certain group of people who are making a certain amount of money who can afford it, then I think it's okay to steal from them, especially if you're a member of the group who they're not like, helping out.
Sure,
If they
they're selling it, then it's okay to steal.
If they're selling it, I mean, it really depends, especially because a lot of my gripes with the way that things have gone with grocery stores is how they've like hiked up the prices and allowed that to happen. So I think if they do just continue to keep high prices despite inflation going down and all that kind of thing, then I think you're okay to steal it. But generally you should only do it when it's necessary. And you should try and do it to shops that can both afford it and also kind of deserve it.
Loner, what do you think?
I don't know why you should only have to do it if it's necessary, if you think it's like, if it's all being held by capital or private property, which is inherently theft anyway. I feel like that would just mean everything is fair game. If it's
well,
if
no,
it's being
because
sold
that
by a
would be,
business.
I mean, that wouldn't work, obviously, right? If everyone stole, that wouldn't work. You said this yourself. That's why I'm
that's the
saying that
point,
there
yeah,
needs to be
because-
conditions for it.
Well, but you said one of those conditions is if they're putting the prices up. But one of the reasons they keep putting prices up, even if inflation is dropping, is because retailers, grocery retailers, only make a profit average of 1%. Maybe Walmart makes 2% profit. So if they lose more than they expect to leak through shoplifting, they're going to put up prices to make up that loss, or they're going to get security. And at the cost of security, they make up that up as well by raising prices.
Well, that's the same
so
thing.
that's the problem. It's like, even if you assume that this is like, or with the baby formula, even if you assume that this is like a good, honest gang just trying to get the goods to the mothers for a lower cost, then someone else is paying for that. Some other customers are paying for that.
Necessarily,
and generally, they're also seeing goods chained up and extra security or shops closing. Or so yeah.
I want to note that I don't just support gangs going into a place. I think keeping I know I slipped up there before, but keeping the community feeling safe and happy is a primary concern of mine. So I wouldn't necessarily encourage that.
Knowing that there's a high amount of stealing or shoplifting makes the people in the community feel safe and happy.
Yeah,
He's stealing time from
do.
all of us, but we
I
can
am.
stop him. Actually, my security has stopped him.
Go on.
Max,
Okay.
I want you
What was
to
your
answer
question again? I'm
question.
sorry. It's
So
late here.
basically, does shoplifting in a community or an area, does that not make the community feel less safe? Right?
I mean, it depends on who you are. If you're a privileged member of the community who feels like they're they're entitled to having all the products that they can buy or whatever, then obviously you're going to see shoplifting and be like, oh, those people didn't do what I did. They don't deserve that, right? I mean, that's usually like the mindset of people protecting capital.
Okay, so if you're scared by people shoplifting, by people committing acts of burglary, then you're privileged and you're
Do you think you're
spoiled,
privileged?
And well, I was asking you a question, but whether or not I'm privileged has very little to do with this. And I'm privileged.
It has
not
everything to do with it. Because, Lauren, I know that you are somebody who's incredibly privileged, because the way that you talk about shoplifting, the way you talk about not ever doing any crime to help out your loved ones, it shows to me that you've always had everything available to you within the system, right? It shows to me that you've never had to go like for an extra systemic solution. Like you've never had to go out of that in order to survive. So you're very clearly a very privileged person, and a lot of people aren't. I mean,
you know my life so well, apparently.
I mean,
So
look
don't
at
think
you,
I'm
listen
privileged,
to
Lauren?
you. It's very clear,
Lauren, but
Lauren.
you
I
don't
mean,
think
if
you're
you weren't privileged, then tell me.
That's not the question.
Lauren, you're saying you're not privileged?
That's not what I'm saying. I am privileged.
Right.
I say that I have never in my life
Okay, that's what Carl was saying. He was saying
That's
you're
not what I'm
privileged.
saying. I'm saying that you haven't experienced like the hardships of being systemically oppressed in a way that you can't easily escape, like especially by financial or capitalistic means.
Oppression.
Excuse me?
I will say,
As for being I have experienced being like poor myself, not to the point where I was worried about starvation. I'll be honest with that.
Okay. How poor are we talking? I mean, I don't want to be too rude, actually.
I've
Let's
had
not go into that.
I've had zero, and I've had like negative bank account, if that's what you're asking. Like I've been down zero, but like I've had to go ask family for help before, if that's what you're asking.
Okay. And can you understand if why
Yeah,
somebody
I
who
think
doesn't
that-
necessarily have family and things that they can like reach
Family to
back on
help?
might, yeah, if somebody didn't have that, can you understand why they might then feel it's okay to take money from like a company that gets like hundreds of
No.
billions of dollars a year? You don't,
No,
you wouldn't
because
understand
there's
that.
no.
You said that, okay,
No,
so there's,
because
You say you have a lot of moral absolutes. You also say that like killing somebody is already always bad. What if somebody's like got your whole family at gunpoint?
Defense,
They're holding a.
self-defense.
They've got a.
Like in self-defense.
Yeah, sure.
So you're acting in self-defense.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
fine.
Self-defense is fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So how are people who are shoplifting not defending themselves from the system, which is telling them they can't have enough
Not
food and stuff?
defending themselves from the system. That's such a warped way of looking at
Well,
it.
10% of
The
Americans are
system-
people who are food insecure. They are defending themselves from a system which
they're
isn't
not.
allowing them
You
to.
keep on going to food.
That's
Food
right.
insecurity doesn't mean you need to shoplift, though. Food insecurity is just it's more to do with
Yeah,
nutrition.
but I
really. You don't
think
have
if
to
you're
shoplift
food
your-
insecure, you have a lot more justification in shoplifting than someone who isn't. I think you can agree with that, right? If somebody can't, if somebody has to
I
skip
mean,
meals,
that's the biggest
It's
mod Bailey I've
never
ever heard in my fucking life. But yeah, of course.
What?
Yeah.
it's a pretty fucking straight to the point.
If we're talking about privilege again, like poor communities are generally where most of the people have to deal with shops being everything being behind glass and padlocks and everything because of the amount of shoplifting that happens in their communities. Again, quite often by gangs, and that's like the big reason that like the bulk of these measures are taken. So like I don't know why you're calling it the privileged position, because I mean maybe I'm being anecdotal, right? Because I came from a very poor community as well. Poor people fucking hate crime. Generally speaking, the most fucking fascistic, tough on crime opinions you'll ever get in society are from poor people.
yeah, because they're people who have like
crime.
they've put in the
True.
effort, they've struggled more than anybody else has to get out of that position, and then they look down upon the other people who can't who aren't capable of
Not
doing it.
exactly.
Much more
Yeah,
Not
and they
exactly.
suffer the
Not
consequences
exactly.
from shoplifting.
Okay,
It's-
go on.
Hang on, wait. That is not true. Once again, when we are talking about people who are following shoplifters out of the store, we are talking about retail workers. These are not people who have escaped
Are
poverty.
retail
What
workers
Loner-
privileged?
Well, LonerBox has
Wait,
LonerBox
Sunday,
has
are
said
retail workers
I don't know what-
privileged?
no. What LonerBox has
Okay,
said is
do they perhaps
hang on.
maybe
Wait, can I
represent
finish my
both?
sentence? What LonerBox has said is actually correct. It is the case that poorer people hate shoplifters. They really do. This is why, for example, even an underpaid retail worker will follow around a shoplifter in the store and will bother to report them because they despise it. But it is not because they have managed to escape poverty. That is crucial. They're retail workers. They're in poverty. They're paid probably the minimum possible wage legally.
Yeah. I mean, no, what I more meant was
muted?
that it's not people who've
you're
escaped
fine.
Oh, I'm
poverty,
muted on
it's
my end,
people
sorry.
who are in poverty,
not
but
muted
they're
on mine.
working really hard to try and get through it still. And they're angry because the other people aren't
Yeah, but
working
I
I think the,
equally as
workers,
hard.
no,
the only
but-
reason
but-
the
but
workers
the
will
thing
go
is
out of the
that
way
when
to
we're
report
talking-
because they don't want to be scrutinized further by the company and being surveyed more.
No, but no, that's not true. That's not true. They enthusiastically, I know because I used to do this. They enthusiastically pursue shoplifters.
Yeah, the workers.
Yeah, no, but not because they're worried about moving up in the company. They view shoplifters with contempt, unjustly, by the way. But that's beside the point.
I mean, I've just heard of people getting
Okay, I want to hear from Aaron. Aaron, go ahead.
Retail workers do not have limitless upward mobility. I'm
Sunday,
sorry,
Look,
my
this is
friend.
your friend, Aaron. You know you're friends with Sunday, so talk to him.
I'm only
Aaron,
the first
go
lady.
ahead.
I'm not the president. Okay. One.
Yeah.
And two, the other thing is that like when we're talking about like consequences and fallout of retail theft and shoplifting, and we're talking about those security things that they have to put with like razors and deodorant where you have to ding somebody and call an attendant or whatever. It's like that's a consequence in the most neutral sense of the word, meaning that that's like cause and effect. That's what happens after there's a lot of retail theft related to certain items in a store. But I do think it's like preferable to the alternative, which is that the store shuts down. I feel like how is this not a win-win for everybody? It's an automated security measure that most stores can implement fairly easily. Customers can reliably get the products that they need simply by, yes, an inconvenience that makes me want to fucking kill myself, which is having to talk to one of these fucking, wage cucks and get my deodorant. Okay, but it deters crime. You don't actually have to, like, to me, that is always annoyance, but it's a win-win because then we don't have to actually send more people to jail because of a petty crime like that. It becomes too difficult.
I think the underlying problem that is across the board is that people are forced into a situation of poverty and scarcity generally artificially by a level of theft and a level of enslavement and exploitation that we are seemingly universally fine with. For whatever reason, the debate is at the level of shoplifting, even though people are only shoplifting outside of, for example, people who are doing so as an organized method to profit, which I agree is like at the bare minimum morally neutral. We are only at this level of resolution because we are concerned at a level of law and order when the things that they are stealing from, and we're talking about big supermarkets, Walmart, etc. We are talking about organizations that rely on expropriation abroad and functionally acting as a cartel with other businesses locally. There's a reason why companies are able to pay the minimum wage, and that's because there's no competition, because they all more or less will pay the same amount for the same job. That's what creates that poverty in the first place, because people don't have a choice.
I just want to say that given the fact that, again,
There should be no minimum wage.
that what correlates with shoplifting is also violence against retail staff, and retail staff are usually quite poor and working class. Like, that's why I feel like, but whenever I hear this reasoning, which is that, well, in the case of capital, which is like inherently theft, or that Walmart holds the goods and therefore that they're holding it from people who deserve it for less than they're paying, then the problem with that then is like, it sounds like, not what you're saying, but what I'm saying is like, I just feel like it's kind of difficult to get the concession that I think just generally shoplifting should be a social taboo. If we're making exceptions for
violence happening
necessity.
to the staff?
Even at the level of like an interaction not actually taking place where like people come to blows. When I used to work retail, what would typically happen is typically guys would come through, they would pick up their stuff, and one of the first things they would grab would be a baseball bat from the sports aisle. You're not going to accost somebody with a baseball bat on their way out the door, right? Like, that happens. So that's a losing argument. The issue is not that shoplifting isn't violent. Obviously it is.
Wait, that's not a losing argument. My argument is that the retail worker should not interfere. If you see someone taking
But you're
something...
talking about, nobody here is arguing that the retail workers have an obligation to report or to accost people.
Hold on, just one thing. It's not considered assault. You have shopkeeper's privilege, which allows you to temporarily hold someone for a reasonable amount of time in a reasonable manner to ensure that they didn't take any items if you have reasonable belief that they did.
I don't think that should be a responsibility of the worker. There should be a hired security that does that.
Bro,
So-
I'm losing my mind listening to you talk about who you think it should be the what you think about this is so irrelevant to the conversation.
It really isn't. Because you're putting the responsibility on the workers.
Who is responsible for turning somebody in? So first of all, the customers have that option.
Nobody,
The
everybody
employee-
involved.
They're not the responsibility.
Everybody involved
It's impossible
owns
to
the.
hear Lauren, and I want to hear what Lauren has to say.
Everybody else has to. You have to interrupt to get a word in.
What do you mean?
You don't.
I mean, I've been more of a moderator than you have. You've put your thumb on the scale, Wick.
Okay. Lauren, finish.
Okay, so you do have shopkeeper's privilege, and that does vary by state. That is true. California doesn't even have that anymore. That being said, it's no longer a privilege. Okay, go ahead. Go. What did you want to say, Ali?
So what I'm saying is like, it shouldn't be a thing. The shop, a worker.
Right, let me get back. Yeah, okay, let me cover that. So who it should or shouldn't be required to turn it in is not relevant to the conversation. Now, the customers who are not shoplifting, they have the moral, like, in my
Not even
opinion,
moral.
Okay, they're not legally required to turn anyone in. Sure, fine. They're not legally required to. That's just the case. And you personally think that they're morally they shouldn't even turn anyone in. That's a different argument. Now, when it comes to the employee, that's based off their contract. If the contract in their employment agreement says that they are required as like the shopkeeper to also participate in security, then it would be their requirement. Because contractual. So yeah,
Agreed.
it would be their responsibility. So
Agreed.
Yeah, it would be their responsibility. Okay. Okay, so you do, because you said it was
Now, oftentimes that is not put into the contract, because when you're hiring someone to be a manager, you are not hiring them as trained security. They are not supposed to put their lives in danger to protect your profits. That would make absolutely no sense. So, while I was talking, when LonerBox was talking, and he was saying that there's violence being incurred, I'm saying that it becomes a different crime. Now, if the worker approaches the shoplifter, which I think you should not do, that responsibility should not be on that person, because they should not put their life in danger. That's all I'm saying. That it's their fault.
Stop. You say it should not. Okay, so in that situation, employee's responsibility is to stop the shoplifting, okay? Then is it
No,
okay
it's
for
not.
the employee
I
to
No, it's
stop
not.
the shoplifting?
Hang on, wait, no. If you pursue
no,
a
because
shoplifter,
most
you
people
will
don't
be
even read their
reprimanded.
contracts. I'm sorry, to get a job at
Wait.
Walmart, no, you're not expected. You're not getting paid to do it, and you're not expected to work security. I'm
Have
sorry.
you?
Saying in a situation where you
Oh
are
my God.
paid to handle the register and also prevent shoplifting, and maybe you're paid a bit extra because you have extra job responsibilities.
What?
Then do you think
That's
that
not how that
employee
works.
In your hypothetical, sure. In your hypothetical, sure.
absolutely is how that works, President Sunday? Welcome to like
Wait, people get
retail? I
paid more
guess
when they
it's
do more
not.
work
In your
every time.
hypothetical, sure.
Stores are usually not tasked with what loss prevention and security is
They're
tasked
not.
with. Stores typically
Wild.
have
So what, you've
those-
only worked at like Nordstrom's and like large, you've never worked at like a like
a mom
in
and
a
pop?
small
Yeah.
store?
No, I have.
Yeah,
I
and
have, and that wasn't under our like job
That's
responsibilities.
So when you work retail in a mom and pop store, they don't tell you that you need to prevent theft as well.
They
I
should.
get
Have
it.
you
ever worked a retail job in
It
your
is not
life,
the
lady?
responsibility of the worker to
They
prevent
don't
that
say that in
theft.
the UK for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
It is not the
I mean,
responsibility of
especially
the
not in
worker to
America where
prevent
people
that
have guns,
Especially
probably,
if
right?
you get
You're talking
injured as like
contractually, now we're talking morally.
Okay.
if you get injured, usually the liability that the shop is going to assume if you got injured trying to prevent somebody from shoplifting, that ends up being more costly than if you had just allowed them to steal the item. That's why they don't instruct them to do it.
That's why in California. Okay, so what you're talking about is very different, and that shows that you're not working at mom and pop stores. That shows that you're working in like large retailers.
No, I worked at a pharmacy.
Retailers, so
You're not
even-
obligated
so
in
you're
mom
not
and
even
pop shops to
retail.
stop thieves.
Not even retail. Okay,
Not
so in the
even
mod, so, like,
retail.
so when I worked retail Laguna, you have small stores. They're usually owned by one person. What they do is they usually find like a couple of merchants from another country. Then they purchase in bulk from them, and then they sell at a higher price. It is literally only one person, and it's tight margins. And they pay you more than minimum wage, but they also anticipate you to try your best to prevent theft. Yeah, and you're supposed to
Maybe in
engage
Laguna
job-
Beach.
Yeah, so people who work in retail are not safe from violence just because they turn a blind eye. If you have a shoplifter, a lot of what they want, like alcohol, batteries, razors, are behind the counter, and that often involves the shoplifter having to either threaten or attack the retailer together. That's why That's why there's a. It's so they can shoplift. That's why.
Armed robbery?
That's why.
Not
that's why I
shoplifting,
was-
that is
Let Loner
robbery.
finish. Let Loner
That's-
finish. Loner, go ahead.
Why I was saying earlier, that's why there's usually a correlation between shoplifting increasing and violence against staff increasing. So that's why I have a problem with earlier on when you saw this thing with Twitter and the whole, if you didn't see anything. The problem there is that it seems like from a lot of people, particularly people on the far left anti-capitalist wing, is that the position is kind of just like shoplifting is either basically acceptable or just like based because fuck capitalism. Whereas I think a much more reasonable position to be like a general rule should be that shoplifting should be a social taboo. Does anyone disagree with that? And we can maybe explore that, or
No, but can I
I
respond?
don't disagree, but I don't think you should be conflating shoplifting and like petty thievery with armed robbery.
what about you, Karl Marx? Do you think shoplifting should be a social taboo?
Again, I think it should depend. I mean, look, if we were to like put in policies in which we knew that people were always getting enough food and that kind of thing, people always had enough resources, I would agree. Yes, it should be a taboo because then people don't actually need that. But while we do have things like the failing American food stamp system, which is, it's hard to get to. Like you have to be working a shit ton of hours, even if you've got kids. You've got to you only get like a pretty small amount of money, especially in certain states. Like while these things are possible, while people are still, going hungry, I think it's okay for shoplifting to exist. But I mean, if you folks are pro instating policies like a fucking UBI or something, so people can make sure that people will always be able to afford food, then yeah, we can say that shoplifting is like a bad thing. But you need to take those steps to make sure that people don't end up actually doing it out of necessity first, Then you can say it's bad.
I think apart from Lauren, I think most people would agree that like if you're in Aladdin's situation and you need to eat to live, then yeah, and you need to steal to eat, then that's probably fine. But generally, yeah, but like that's not really, that's an exception to like a pretty general rule because I think most people
where are
in
you
America
getting
and
this
the UK,
from?
don't need to steal to like be fed.
Right, but only like 10% of people steal anyway. Like, it's not like everyone is stealing. I mean, and like a pretty large proportion of people who are stealing are people who have money troubles.
Do you think
like, it's
that
not...
when all these retailers are increasing their security and putting their prices up or even closing stores, is that just like hyperbole to you, or what? I think it's been
You keep on
increasing this
making
year,
a point
but-
about how shoplifting correlates with everything else going up and getting worse. You're saying like shoplifting is what drives up the price. How are we to say that people aren't just shoplifting more because the price went up? That's usually how it correlates. You keep on taking these things where like you're acting like people like shoplifted and then ruin the economy. Like the economy can't do that on its own. Like people respond to the conditions that they're in. They're not like creating them by just shoplifting. It's incredibly like that's like such a minute problem in like the large scale of things that's causing people to suffer.
One of the conditions that we're in is that shoplifters generally, even if they take thousands of dollars worth of goods at once, are getting away with it. That's one of the conditions, which means people are more likely to do it, right? Do you disagree with that?
I mean, yeah, no, I think that you should probably try and
you
stop
and me,
people who
for
are
example, like I
stealing.
don't think you and me, if we perceive that we could get away with it, would therefore shoplift any chance we get.
Well, we're not the entire statistical like sample of a country, so yeah.
No, I understand, but it's not simply the case that every single individual within a country, if they perceive that they can get away with it, will shoplift.
Will
I'm not
more
saying
or
everyone.
less?
Come on, wait, you're smarter than that.
But
So
if
you
you're
know
if
that I'm
you're
not saying
if you're
everyone. I'm
talking,
saying
no,
it would
but
go up.
if you're saying that the perception that people can get away with it will necessarily cause an increase in the amount of people shoplifting, sort of in aggregate, and that will simply extend to everybody, that simply doesn't follow.
Well, generally, people commit crimes for a number of reasons. One of those reasons is that there's not enough of a deterrent, right? And it seems to me there isn't much of a deterrent for
necessarily.
So what, they're just doing it
but
just
deterrence
cause?
can be multifarious. It's not
some
simply,
people steal but to turn a profit. That's one reason people might steal. People steal to cut drugs.
But
People steal
we're now we're
yeah.
talking about motives as opposed to deterrence, right? You switched.
Well, but you need both. They're not mutually exclusive.
No, they aren't.
I think
mutually
the problem
exclusive.
that people are talking about when it comes to retail theft, organized retail theft, is that there is no deterrent. And this is what retailers are saying. This is what governments are saying. This is what politicians the problem. This is what law enforcement says is that it seems to be very easy to get away with stealing thousands of dollars worth of stuff. Is that?
I mean, them locking up stuff behind security things that you have to ding the employer for is a deterrent, no?
That's one. Well, that's kind of like a deterrent, but that also means that you have to pay for extra security, and the price gets offset on goods.
Well, not necessarily,
That's probably
because
not
it's
the best
typically
way
not
to-
security that has the keys to the case.
I also
It's
typically-
No, that's
typically-
actually the
yeah.
opposite. No, that's the opposite though. The expense is the case. When you go, for example, to the pharmacy aisle and you have to buy condoms behind a case, very embarrassing, by the way. You have to talk to a retail employee. You're not talking to a security guard. That's the person who unlocks the case.
Which means they had to hire more employers to run around the store.
No, they don't.
open
No. That's not true at all.
Responsibility.
That's
Which
not
is
true
why-
at all.
Which is why I think it's personally, I'd rather not have to get everything in a shop from behind a case. So I'd maybe prefer that, at least for a start, the repeat offenders, which seem to be making up like a very disproportionate amount of the thefts, is that they can either be put in jail where they can't shoplift anymore, or they can get fined to a point that it's not actually worth the risk to do it.
Loner, what sentence, out of like curiosity, what sentence do you think is appropriate for like a repeat offender for theft?
6 months.
I
That
haven't
hasn't even exceeded a felony amount.
I haven't thought about a particular number.
You have to
for
spend a
years.
week with
I'd have to
Aaron.
get back to you on that.
Based.
They have to go on a WIC panel, okay? One WIC panel for one thievery charge, okay? Okay, that's what has to happen. Lauren, you had a question, but I want to get to Max. So, Lauren, ask your question if
Yeah.
it's quick, and then we'll get to Max.
So President Sunday, you're like, oh, they're not hiring more people. They actually have the same amount
They
of
aren't.
employees.
They
So
aren't.
you're like, all the employees are the proletariat, and we should protect them. And
No.
we should
Employees
prevent
are
them
our employees
from-
are lumpen proletariat. You got that kind of mixed up, but go on.
Okay, fine.
Are employees lumpen
employees
proletariat?
are-
Yeah, they're like retail workers. They're
the
unskilled.
employees are
No, that's not
struggling
what-
Is it not? I thought lumpen
No.
proletariat was
No.
like
Lumpen proletariat are like so fucked by the system that they can't
We don't
work.
even know the
People-
question
they're-
because
Yeah, they're like
they don't have
useless.
class consciousness.
We're
They're just
arguing about what
people-
she's meaning by
The
a
dregs.
specific word.
No.
Let her ask
The
her question.
lumpen. No. Hang on. Wait. The lumpen proletariat are just those members of the proletariat who are lack awareness of the collective interest.
This has nothing to do with the question.
Yeah, it does actually. Wait, quick, please
Oh
just
my
shut
God.
up for one goddamn second. So very quickly, as a point of information, this is important.
God.
The lumpen proletariat are those members of the proletariat who lack awareness of themselves as a class. So, for example,
right.
when you have lumpen proletariat like retail workers who are policing other lower class people, for example, chasing them out of the parking lot because they're shoplifting meat, those would be lumpen proletariat. Sorry, as you were, Lauren.
So you're saying they're not hiring more people; they're just making those employees do a significant amount of more work, like running around.
Exactly. That's exactly what they're doing. They're
You're-
making the
so
limited
you're
number of employees they
pro-
already have do more. Correct.
So you're for that because if you're for
No, I'm not.
shoplifting and therefore
I'm not for
then
shoplifting.
you-
I
then you would
presented
be
in my
for
opening statement, if you'll
prosecuting-
recall, arguments against shoplifting.
No, just
Wait,
Lauren
so
thinks
then
that
you
the only
support
reason that they're doing that is
lawsuits.
because of shoplifting.
No, well, I mean, that is the only reason why they're doing it.
reason
That
they
is
have
shoplifting.
those-
That's
the
correct.
reason they
Why else
have
would they
the-
put them behind
Oh my
cases?
God.
They're not putting them behind
I'll
cases
never
because they're
finish
not shoplifting.
Yeah, they're putting them behind
Madam.
cases because they're shoplifting. If they were prosecuting the shoplifters, they wouldn't need to put them behind cases. But you're not for prosecuting the shoplifters, so you are for putting them behind
I mean,
cases.
you're
even though
presupposing
that's
that
gonna
if we
make
lock them all
workers-
up,
Put the
that they would-
shoplifters
Can I
behind
finish
cases.
the
Get
Huzzah.
rid of
Can I
that.
finish the sentence?
Finally.
Can I finish the sentence, Aaron? Is that okay with you?
No, because you're presupposing that if they locked up every single repeat offender and shoplifter, that they would go back on those security measures when in reality they're probably going to be here to stay.
If those repeat offenders were locked up in the first place, they would have never needed the cases.
That's true.
If locking
It's a
people up helps
hypothesis.
crime,
It's a nice
how come
hypothesis
America's
you
got
got
so many people locked up but so many criminals still? It doesn't work. The American justice system doesn't work.
I feel like for different crimes, you have different like problems and solutions, right?
Right, but do you folks agree that we should be instating like real solutions, like fixing the welfare system, or perhaps something like a UBI? Because if you are against shoplifting,
I don't know why whenever we have these discussions, people like feel like you have to just choose one or the other. I mean, like I don't know, like I didn't do criminology for that long, but one of the prime examples they gave us of like stopping a crime epidemic, like the knife epidemic in Glasgow, was that you can approach it from both ends. One end was that they gave like apprenticeships and social programs and things like that to get people off the streets. The other side was the negative reinforcement, which is that they took a bunch of people who were carrying knives and gangsters and jailed them for 25 years to set an example to the others. I don't know why one excludes the other. Like you can do both.
Because
and with
we
the
should be-
shoplifters, with repeat offenders, it seems to be the case that some of these people are just kind of incorrigible. Like, yeah, maybe they just need to be fucked off so that they can stop
But
stealing.
I'm
indefinitely?
sure some
Indefinitely,
people
we
are
will.
like
No,
that.
not indefinitely, but at least they should
Well,
be
no,
jailed.
but-
They should have
What
a
not
I'm
reason.
saying is
indefinitely.
that they need to be fucked.
I'm not saying incorrigible like forever. No.
Loner,
come
let's
back.
say,
Generally,
let's
no.
say I'm gonna be charitable and I'm gonna say that it's actually just a minority of shoplifters who are doing it out of necessity. Let's say 30%. If there was a policy you could instate to get those 30% of people to stop shoplifting because they no longer have to, would you do that? Would you be willing to support that and advocate for that? Because I see people complaining about these things a lot, but then they never actually propose an actual solution outside of like just punitive, the usual
Do you
punitive
think
shit,
I
right?
haven't?
I don't think anything.
Well, we don't disagree. So personally, we don't disagree with like the UBI and welfare measures and things like that. Yeah, we don't
Okay.
disagree
Well,
with that.
but you should
It seems
be.
to me that we disagree with the punitive measures. That's why I thought it'd be more interesting to explore that one.
But I wanted just like a recommended sentencing guideline for someone who's like a repeat offender like 3 times or whatever for petty theft that hasn't even amounted to more than like a felony amount or a few $100.
Aaron, you're not listening to me. How many times did I say organized retail theft? Like,
How much
repeat
of
offenders.
shoplifting is organized retail theft? Do we? Because I tried to find
30%, I
statistics on
think.
this. Do we know this?
Okay, but the difference between
I don't know as a percentage, but we do know that it's like
Hang on.
anything between like 20 and 70 billion
It is
dollars.
rising
Like,
as
it's a
well.
The
lot.
difference between organized retail theft and non-organized retail theft is literally just there are multiple people involved in the collection of this material from the store, right? So the relevant question is, what kind of sentencing would result in either deterrence or a cessation of organized, in particular, retail theft?
You get added charges for organized retail theft, and it depends if it's cross-state and how many people.
I
you have
understand.
conspiratorial charges.
No, I
you
understand
have-
there are.
you could-
I understand there are different consequences. The question is, are there consequences that work? What's the threshold? Because this is the reason why this comes into play. If the argument is that shoplifting at an organized scale has some kind of community, like it constitutes some kind of community harm, and if your response to that is some kind of increased penalty or some kind of specific penalty for that, either you need to demonstrate that this actually has a positive impact either on the community or it diminishes the amount of organized theft, or you are doing so for
not how the
retributive
law works.
reasons, which, by the way, is an argument
That's
you
not how
can
the-
make, but you need to make it.
I mean,
You're
how
asking
hard
me,
of
or-
an argument is that to make
wasn't
that it's
asking, I was just saying
retributive? That's not really like a difficult argument. It's clearly, but So when
Clearly
you're
what? What's
the
clearly
one
what?
thing that the one
Hang on, I didn't catch what you said. Can you say it again?
retributive.
Because you could
said
keep talking when she's talking. Of course you can't
my
hear
God.
her.
She was talking
because
when
you're
I was
busy
talking. That's why I couldn't
How
hear
can
it.
anyone
No,
hear
I
what she's saying? Or the sound of your fucking voice? They can't hear you.
Not a hard argument to make that it's retributive because yeah, in the scenario that you just laid out, then what other if it's not going to actually deter the theft, the increased like sentencing guidelines is not necessarily to, I mean, it can be to prevent, but honestly, preventative measures, it doesn't really show. There's
It's just
very
to
little
administer
data
the
that,
justice of God.
there's very little data that shows that increasing the sentencing range for a crime actually deters the crime that much. What actually deters crime is the number of police officers and the likelihood to get caught. So if you're going to be increasing, so yeah. So you're saying that you have to actually show, like data-wise, that increasing the sentence would correlate with a decrease in shoplifters, and that's just not how laws are written or what is necessary to increase the sentencing.
I don't know how that was addressing anything that I said, but
Loner, give it a shot.
I was literally addressing the exact thing. Oh my God. Did you go to law school?
no.
Okay, Loner, give it a shot.
I think
Loner, give it a shot.
apparently last year and into this year, I think like 9 or 10 states have put in laws to increase the sentences for organized retail theft. I think it seems to range from like a few months to over a year. But yeah. Seems okay. I wouldn't have an issue with that.
I mean, ideally, no. Like, I don't think the majority of people need to be locked up for nonviolent
Someone
crime.
can
The
steal
United States
1,000
has like
times. 1,000 times come and go into a store, break into
No.
Walmart, break into
no, because
Walgreens,
you're
and steal
assuming that
1,000 times.
Wait, you're presupposing that just because I don't share the same opinion on like what the punishment should be, that there should be no attempt to remedy that person from repeat offending.
What I'm asking is, if your remedy does not work, is there ever a point where you
The question is, if
towards-
my remedy doesn't work, a rehabilitation or providing people with the resources that they need to deter them from stealing,
Yeah, they keep
then
stealing.
yes, I would look at more punitive measures if that was what
Such as
meaningfully
jail.
deterred crime. Yes, such as jail. If that
Okay, fair
if
enough.
there was data that suggested that meaningfully prevented people from repeat offending, yes, I would.
It depends on what you've tried, right? With like pretty much any of these cases that people will like mention, I mean there will be like a quantity of people who do just like compulsively do bad shit. That can happen, that can exist, and those people probably do need to be like protected in a way that they don't end up, you know, hurting other people or bringing harm to themselves in some way. But for the large majority, this just isn't really the case, and you can usually figure out how to solve these issues. But yeah, you know, for some people, maybe heavier sentencing would be necessary, but I think in the large majority of cases, you could find another like economic or rehabilitative solution.
I think it a little bit depends on the amount and the like repetition. Obviously, if someone's stealing like 50-cent bag of chips, I don't really care. I don't think they should be jailed. But if someone's stealing enough and they do it repeat 3 times, they went through community service, whatever, then be jailed. So
Every day a man goes into Walmart, and every day he steals a bag of chips. He doesn't need to, right? Like, it's just what he does.
Cut his balls off.
There's no point in time where you don't throw this person in jail for at least.
I'm not gonna lie, nah, over a bag of chips, and I really couldn't.
Okay, fair enough. That's your answer. That's your answer. Okay, excellent. Gang.
LonerBox, you're okay with a 15-year sentence for organized shoplifting?
I think that would have to be pretty extreme if it was. There'd have to be some violence involved
Like,
in
how
that.
much
For
product
15
is worth
years.
15 years in your judgment?
I don't know if it turns a neighborhood into a food desert by closing the only place that's close to the people in a certain community. That's pretty fucking rough. But no,
Yeah, but
generally
that's not-
15
that's
years.
not
Like,
why they would be
and if they
sentenced to
fucking
15
beat
years.
someone up while they were doing it, no, I don't think 15 years is generally.
A Walgreens or a Walmart or something like that's going to be more likely a contributor to it being a food desert than the opposite.
Well, retailers can close if the shoplifting, if the amount they lose in shoplifting doesn't make it worth it. But either way, I'm generally not for like massive punitive measures just for their own sake. I would.
Fair enough.
I don't know. I haven't thought much about how many years, but 15 does seem quite extreme.
That's fair. I'll take it.
Yeah, so we're gonna get to closing statements. Please tell people where they can find you, because a lot of people want to sign you. And thank you for the Prime sub, Royal Air Horse. I really appreciate you. Carl, Max, what you got?
Well, my name is at Ceremonious Hurt on Twitter, and on YouTube I'm at CarlMaxLive. My closing thoughts on the whole thing are that, I think, people tend to, when they think about a thing, they often think about it through exclusively one lens. You know, leftists will take crime, they'll think it's exclusively really okay and good all the time. Libs or right-wingers will say it's always terrible and evil. I think people need to, you know, really try and knuckle down and actually figure out what the issues are caused by, what we could do to solve a large quantity of the problem, which, you know, we could via economic solutions and stuff. And that the only solution isn't just to, you know, kind of limit these people's freedom, which a lot of people seem to believe. So yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you for being here. It was a pleasure. We're trying to set something up between Short Fat Otaku and this gentleman, but we'll see how that goes. President
Dev?
Sunday.
That guy?
Yeah, that's Dev.
Oh,
We'll see if
yes,
that
I would
goes.
like that.
Lauren, what you got?
Yeah, I find it sad that this conversation went the way that it went. The area of gray that y'all wanted to point at, calling theft self-defense of the poverty of the system, is quite literally insane, considering the poorest person in America has not even understood what poverty is like in other parts of the world, like Africa. The people here don't starve of starvation the way they do in other countries.
Can I respond to this or no?
It's closing statements. We're not
Okay.
ending. Stay if you
Okay.
want to respond. But let
Just
her have her
sorry.
closing statement. My God. Go ahead.
It's just quite a closing
Wow,
statement,
like,
but all right.
We're not having like mass starvation the way that we see in other
starve
countries where there's
whitely.
actually poor people. And yeah, when you are in self-defense with murder, it's because somebody is like literally physically coming at you in the moment. When you're stealing computers to later sell because maybe you might need food and also like a vacation, that's not self-defense. This entire argument is really sad and retarded. You could find me at
True.
Lauren de Laguna everywhere, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter.
You are a certifiable
Thank you.
nutball.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate you, and I hope to see you again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have more degrees than you, President Sunday.
Boom.
You want to around with your book?
Okay, we can fight in a second. We can fight in a second. We gotta get.
They
we
don't
gotta get
measure mental
Ollie.
illness
Gotta give
in
Ollie
degrees, my
his
friend.
turn.
Hello.
Yep, you're live.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so just a quick clarifying thing to the losers that defend stealing. I believe Ollie and Carl.
Knew he had a hot avatar.
Wait, what?
But I knew he had a
If you
hot
want to
avatar.
turn your camera on and let him know who you really are.
Yeah, do that.
Oh, sorry. I just got out of the gym. Sorry, I'm just walking to my car. I've been listening to you guys.
I'm a gym, yeah. Oh, like. Oh.
Sorry.
Ooh,
Hey,
I
hey,
like
hey,
it,
I know
yeah.
you can always catch me. This is why I normally don't do debates, and because I'm always busy around this
Okay,
time.
well,
But anyway,
the time
okay.
isn't working.
All right.
But go on.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
No. Anyway,
Well.
ask your question.
So, I want to know to what degree someone said earlier, oh, if you could steal from, Mr. Walmart, it's a real family that made that company anyway. And if they didn't notice, would that be okay? And I want to know, why is that important? Why is it important that if they noticed?
Oh, you're asking me about my stealing from Mr. Walmart's house question?
Yeah. No. Specifically, you said, did they notice? You said that quick. You said that very quickly, like you had that in the chamber. You're like ready to have it out. Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you got?
Well, my I don't really want to stick with that one. You know, I don't think you should be breaking into anybody's house, really.
What? Come on.
I know, but I will give you some justification though, okay? I think that a lot of people who are like hyper rich do tend to have an excess of things that they might not like ever use, and then therefore if it's something that they never use and then got taken from them and they were never aware that it got taken, I don't think that would actually like matter because it wouldn't affect
It's just like an
anything.
object permanence kind of thing. Like, if it never existed in the reality, then it doesn't hurt them. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, kinda, right? I mean, how would they be offended if they
damn it.
didn't know it existed?
Oh, man. So on that reality, couldn't we steal from anyone if they never noticed?
Well, yeah, but most people would probably notice because most people don't have like a massive
No, I'm
excess
not
of
asking.
things.
No.
Right?
Hold on. Wait a second. Why are you adding that? We're not talking about that. We're talking specifically about the noticing part. So, if you steal from anyone and they don't notice, therefore
Well,
it's fine. That's what you're sticking with.
You're gonna have to let me actually give you a proper answer here. I'm not gonna make any like absolute statements like that because that would be retarded and like a really shitty way to make
Right, your
any
statement
point.
was retarded. That's what I'm trying to point out. Thank you for
I know you
finally getting
believe my
things
statement.
correct.
I mean, you've even got Lauren's support. She's like a Mensa head, but like still, no.
I am like the head of Mensa. You're correct. Yeah, I
believe
do
it,
have a
Lauren.
level
I
one
believe it. I support you.
Yeah.
So you're okay with stealing valor? I see. Go ahead.
We need to put a freeze on Lauren until we can.
You don't believe
I
it,
also
Wick?
was in the Air Force. It's not stolen valor.
You're in the Air Force.
in the Air Force.
That's what's.
Oh, really?
Okay.
What did you do? I was in the Air Force for 6 years. I'm curious.
I didn't know.
I only did 2 years, so you like actually did the Air Force. I only was a cadet at the
Well,
academy for 2 years.
Then you can't have been that
Okay,
smart,
that's-
She
Lauren. I'm
went on a
sorry.
field trip to the
Still didn't
airport.
set in SEER. Still
You weren't
didn't
even
set in
you weren't
SEER.
even enlisted. Okay, officers don't.
Oh,
do
the
anything.
officer training, OTS.
I should finish my point. Yeah, I mean,
Answer the question, please. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it depends on who it is, right? If it's somebody who has so much shit that they wouldn't notice if it got taken, I don't really see why they necessarily need to have all of that. Like if somebody, let's say someone has 2 million boxes of noodles
That's
in
not what
their
we were
house.
arguing about. We were arguing about the noticing part. We're not arguing about somebody being a mega rich person or that. Or
Do you understand
super
how
poor
if somebody
person.
has more money and they can afford more things, they'll be less aware if
That's
something
what
gets
my
taken
question
away?
was. My question
Well,
was
they might
about
be-
Isolate the
your
noticing
statement
variable.
of noticing.
But you
to
can't
isolate the
isolate
variable
it
of
though. You
noticing.
you can't
It's
just
a
take like
hypothetical.
one part of my
Wait,
point.
why can't you isolate that
Hey,
variable?
I'm
That was
poor as
one
fuck,
of the
alright,
most
but I
important
have-
parts of your statement.
Like I could say that I don't have that much money, but I do have a few fairly valuable things in my house that I might not notice for like a year or two if they're gone or ever.
Well, if it was a
really.
year or two, then that wouldn't count. I'm talking about things that could disappear.
ever, yeah.
They would never notice.
So time?
I'm a bit of a hoarder, so I do actually have a few things that probably I would never notice, but it would be
Okay.
okay to still
Lauren, you're hot.
wouldn't notice. Or...
I mean,
Wait.
yeah, if there was somebody
Yeah,
who
I have
might
to
like need that
go.
item,
I understand.
you need to go.
I have to go.
I'm
I love
heartbroken.
y'all very much.
you? I
love you
Especially
too.
the sexy man on the phone and LonerBox, and of course Wick TV, and I'll say I love you too, Aaron. Okay, bye y'all.
Wow.
Bye-bye.
I see. how it is.
Does that
I really
does that
wanted to
answer
get
your
it
question?
over.
And oh my God, your camera's actually working now when she left. I don't know.
That's so fucked.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Poor fellow.
Okay. Well, anyway.
Yeah, just
So
share.
no, we're still trying to isolate that variable, like LonerBox was saying, that it's about the noticing. It's not about how rich somebody is or how poor they are. It's about the noticing. It's about the object's permanence side of it. That seemed like to be a very important part for you, correct?
Well, no, it was in relation to the fact that rich people tend to have a lot of shit, and sometimes they don't need all of it. It was like
I
about
think I
that.
got you. I think you also just said it would be okay to steal something from me if I never notice it's gone as well, even though I'm not very rich. Or like, so-
I don't, as I said, I don't think people should be going into each other's houses, but if there was like, if things just disappeared and landed in somebody else's hands without anything going between that, if it was a thing that you never needed and that person like
Okay,
desperately
let me
needed
ask
and
you
it made
this.
their
No,
life
this
way
real quick,
better.
stop.
Like,
Let me-
this
I
is
have a question.
pretty
I have a question, and I'm going to ask a question.
I'm a
I'm
participant.
going to ask
I'm not a
Max.
moderator.
Max. Okay, this is the after panel. Everything else, guys. Max. So if they don't notice and it doesn't harm them, they never know, then it really doesn't harm them, and it's okay. Well, what if someone's passed out drunk? Okay, they blacked out. They're at a party alone, right? No one will tell you. Someone assaults them sexually, but they never know.
No,
No one
it's
ever
not here.
tells them. They never know. There's no after effects. They don't get pregnant. There's
W
Oh
nothing.
my
Wick.
god.
Is that person doing something wrong? Even though the person isn't harmed,
Yeah.
the person
Is
never
that person
knows.
doing something that somebody could be
I
legally
think-
charged for? Just asking for a friend.
Yeah, I
Yeah, what are you
think
talking
rape
about,
is
President
bad.
Sunday? Jesus Christ. I did
Rape
both of
is
those
I
things.
think
bad.
rape is bad
That was
in
a
a
joke.
much more morally objectivist way than stealing is bad. You know, I feel
But I
like
think the
those are
variable in
pretty
both cases was
distinctly
that they don't
different things.
notice. In both cases, the victims don't notice. And I thought it was like the not noticing thing
So-
that made the rich person stealing.
So
okay.
Max, the issue is here is that the crime that is being pointed to seems to
How
have
does
an
LonerBox
existence
do it?
independent seems to have an existence independent of the psychological or personal harm that it causes. So, for example, if the person never noticed, for example, an instance of rape, we may still regard that as being egregious. However, due to it not being noticed, by definition, it wouldn't have a psychological impact. You see the problem.
Holy shit! So you defend Cosby then? You're okay with you're saying that since he drugged people?
No, God, no. No. The entire point is that it's wrong.
They didn't
regardless.
remember, right?
Yeah, the point is it's wrong regardless of whether or not they have an experience of it.
Okay, so therefore
You're not
also
following
stealing
what I'm saying.
is bad.
Yeah, but do you think the same for
Okay.
stealing? I'm guessing, Sunday, I'm guessing you think the same
Thank
for stealing
you.
as well, right?
I'm trying to get to the stealing back to the stealing part.
Well, I was
We're tying
getting there,
that
but you
together.
couldn't follow the sentence because you're drunk or something.
No,
which
because
is odd for me
you
to say.
always are so, be more succinct, man. Please speak more
No.
succinctly. This has
Be
more
always been an issue
succinct.
here.
Okay, we
I'll
have
tell you
some other
what,
people in
you
line.
shave,
We're
I'll
gonna
be more
cut this off
succinct.
because we have other people in line. I want to respect people's time. You got
it was
one
pretty
more
good.
parting shot. One more parting shot, mister.
You look like a
both of you
garden
guys-
gnome.
I don't care. W to LonerBox and to all the people that defended not stealing, losers, and everybody
Okay.
else. Aaron, you're cool.
Oh, thank you.
I'm never recovering from
Just me
this.
then?
She is cool.
That guy doesn't like me.
He does win in the end.
Hello.
Oh,
All
hey,
right.
food stamps.
I,
Good job.
Yes.
We were
Yeah, I
talking about
heard
you
you
earlier.
guys. Yeah, I know. You guys were talking about food stamps. Wait, what the fuck? Lauren isn't here anymore. I was gonna ask her a really interesting question. What the fuck? Okay, hold on. Okay. So, Carl.
Yeah.
Marks. Why? Okay.
Max.
All right. So I have a Max.
I mean,
so,
if you're talking
like,
about me,
to,
yeah.
yeah. To what extent are you like defending like stealing or shoplifting or whatever?
Within like I think a degree of necessity. I also believe that people should live a certain level of comfort. But if that isn't attainable without ruining everything for everybody else, then they shouldn't do that. But most evidence that we've seen about shoplifting doesn't really prove that it will that one person stealing some like more items themselves that they need is gonna like ruin everything and it's gonna like make the shop shut down and stuff. I think it can be done within necessity, and I think it's pretty fair. Especially that 10% of Americans who are food insecure, I think they have full right to shoplift, because if they're not getting enough money to be able to actually feed themselves and their families, then they should get that food in a different way.
Okay, so what if there are some like people who are like in fact like shoplifting for fun? Like people who are shoplifting for, how would you determine that criteria, and where would you draw the line then?
Well, you figure out what their circumstances are, right? You can see how much money they've got, if they've got any debt. You can talk to them and figure it out. I mean, if there are people who are doing it totally unnecessarily, you should probably stop them. You should probably you should in place things in order to stop these people. But if we're at the point where I'm like able to pass laws and stuff, I would already have passed laws to get rid of the other like thieves who are actually people who are doing it in like because out of need because they didn't have enough resources. And thus you'd only have the people who are doing it unnecessarily left, and it would be much easier to like take care of and to prevent people from doing it unnecessarily.
I mean, let's be very fair, right? So you're basically saying that since this is such a non-issue statistically, then would you say that would you allow like shoplifting and stealing like everywhere, that this shouldn't even be illegal at all? That
No,
like
I'm
if
saying
somebody,
that certain
then where do you draw the line,
circumstances,
right?
certain criteria need to be fulfilled of like quality of life and of how people are surviving,
right,
in order
right,
to.
But at the end of the day, the cops can't just talk to literally everybody. It's not like everybody can just simply like talk to everybody and determine the circumstances of every single person.
Right, that's why we in place
the police,
policies that prevent these people
the,
from existing at all.
hold on,
right?
let me finish. So the police
I want to hear from other
cannot.
people here too, but go on.
Yeah, sure. The police cannot simply have enough resources to talk to everybody, do a background check, to do whatever. If you want to argue that point, that's fine. If they want to dig into the background, that's fine. But you would also have to argue to increase the funding for the police department as well. So
I mean,
unless
if it
you want
helps
to
them take care
argue-
of crime better and it helps them do it in a non-violent way,
that's
I don't
fine.
really take
That's
issue
perfectly
with that. I don't
fine.
care
Cool.
about that.
Yeah. All right.
I'm not gonna be
do have
anti-cop
kind of line
funding if
brewing,
it
but I
makes
want
it
to get
better for
other
the
people's
communities.
opinions before we let you go. Food stamps. But any other thoughts on her questioning and lines of questioning?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I wish Lauren was here because I have a question for her. But other than that, I'll see you guys. Okay. Bye. Thank you for letting me in.
Fair
See ya.
enough.
Take care.
I wonder what the question was going to be.
I wonder what
I'm
that was
so
too.
curious. Oh,
But
man.
I guess she can DM me and we can maybe set that up at another date. Let's bring in Lisa is a fascist.
That's promising.
Yeah.
And
We love Lisa. Lisa's a treasure. Go ahead, Lisa.
Is she a
hey
fascist?
there, Rick. It's great to see you. And Ali, I see you. It's nice to meet you. Anyway, what I was going to talk about was EBT and Wick and like as in the program, not Wick as in the man. And
WIC, to be clear.
yes. And also the
Oh, hey, Lisa. How are you?
hey there, Sunday. It's wonderful to speak to you.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you as you were.
Oh, no, go ahead. You can interrupt me anytime you want. Let's see, at a Family Dollar or something, you people in the up northward probably don't have those, but they're like a low-income little variety store that they put in places where there's food deserts. And I said I saw it happen. They were actually talking about it, and then magically one day that Family Dollar was gone. And so I'm thinking that it really did close down because of theft.
Maybe.
But my other thing is I do believe that in most cases now, unless you're really in a bind and you can't get anywhere to get food, there's just really a lot of alternatives. There's EBT. It's not great.
If I may, I think you've actually potentially introduced an interesting sort of wrench to throw into the discussion. So let's presume, for argument's sake, that this proposition that businesses were closing due to shrinkage due to theft was true. Would that fundamentally change the argument of either side? Not necessarily like obviously LonerBox, etc. Their side, they were presuming that, but would it change the position of either Max or Straighter Aid or what do I call you again, sir? Ali?
Ali.
Ollie, you first. I'm moderating now. This is now my stream.
Oh, would it change
Bigger audience than Wick, anyways.
There were stores that closed due to a shrinkage, theft, whatever.
Indeed, yes. Would that bear on your argument?
No, I mean,
Ollie says no.
Yeah.
What do you think, Max?
Oh shit!
Yes,
I'm
no?
sorry. Sorry, I was typing in my chat. What's the question? Sorry.
So if it could be demonstrated through data that there are stores that are closing directly due to shrinkage, loss from theft, etc., would this change your argument? Yes. Or
Nah. I mean, I've been making the same point. I am anti-shoplifting as well. I just want to solve it in a different way.
Yeah.
Got you. Aaron, what about you?
What was the question? I had stepped away.
No, it's fine. If it can be proven, demonstrated, like through data, that to your satisfaction, that loss, shrinkage, theft, etc., is directly responsible for stores closing down in communities, would that change your position?
No.
No.
Unless,
okay.
like,
No's all around. We got the hat trick.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Though, I want some clarification though. Is like the store in question? Is it like a mom and pop shop? Is it a corporation? Is
like
it
a corporation, like a Walmart or something? Maybe
If
it's
it's
like
Walmart,
a major
no.
employer locally, but regardless, it's yeah.
No, generally speaking.
The Family Dollar, if you know what those are, I don't know if you're from America, but like
dollar
there is a
store?
lot of poor
I grew
areas.
up on Family Dollar. I know what it is. In Dollar
Oh,
Tree.
wonderful!
Love me the
Yeah,
Family
Family
Dollar.
Dollar, Dollar Tree, and Dollar General. I love going to all of those.
Are you a Michigander?
Wait, what was the last thing someone said?
I asked her if she was a Michigander. She named all my local dollar stores.
Oh, me?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm in North Carolina.
Okay.
okay.
I'm in
well,
Texas and we have that trifecta also.
Beautiful. Lisa, we love you. You're a valued member of my community, but for now.
Thank you, Lisa.
You're gonna throw me away. I understand. I'm no longer content.
No,
Bye-bye.
you're still good. We still love you.
Take care of
I
yourself.
have a
line.
quick question for LonerBox. I mean, I guess
Okay.
anyone that's like anti-shoplifting, whatever. Do you guys consider like sharing Netflix passwords or like taking snacks into the theater with you as shoplifting as well, or theft?
I think it's a very different. No, I wouldn't really consider it. It's a kind of theft, but I wouldn't consider it the same as shoplifting.
I mean, theaters
because I don't
are
really
food.
know what the.
Theaters are, to be fair, they are fundamentally food services at the end of the day. So, I mean, if you are taking in cheaper food from elsewhere, you are undercutting their business in a similar fashion as a shoplifter would.
But I haven't heard of, well, first of all, people, like, if you're poor and a Walmart closes, you might have to go somewhere further away and more expensive. I don't know about theaters closing because people were taking in their own suites. I don't think I've ever heard about that. That became a massive problem.
Wondering where your like threshold of like stealing from a company lies.
I think generally don't steal, but also when the retail problem is that we have like retailers closing or putting up their prices and shit like that. So I think you'd have to see some kind of consequence that affects the general clientele and the community.
Raises their prices due to password sharing, and then theaters charge like exorbitant amounts for popcorn.
Netflix have just recently made it very, very difficult to share passwords. I think they're probably justified to do that, yeah, because otherwise
they upped their price, then they made it difficult.
Okay.
Right?
They what?
They up their price, then they're making it more difficult. The price is still going to stay the same though.
What?
Okay.
I feel like they could have just done one of those things.
I found LonerBox. I found an article. I found an article saying that cinemas are closing down because of people sneaking snacks in. This isn't an article.
Bad to do. It's probably bad to do.
It's 15 years, 20 years.
It's definitely true. It's definitely
Yeah.
true. It wasn't an article.
That's his point. Olive, what you got for us?
I was gonna say more, but then I missed out, so I don't really have anything. I'm just gonna say Despacito.
Nice.
Well, why'd you cut her out?
I didn't. She cut herself out. She self-selected.
I don't believe you.
So two things, really quickly. So first, I think Wix did a really bad job of relaying my chat message earlier. So what I asked him to do actually was to insult you personally, Karl Marx or Karl Max, both for being British and also for saying something stupid that really triggered me. Okay. So when LonerBox brought up like news stories or articles that about shoplifting and its effect on like I think like poor communities, you hand waved it by saying that another article, some other story was incorrect at some point. So therefore, how could we trust this article that LonerBox is bringing up? I think that was fucking terrible. Right, that's fucking awful position to take, especially given that when he asks you what you look to, what you trust, you said data, and we know that sometimes researchers flub data.
Right.
So I don't.
Can I tell you the data I was
obviously
basing
it's not
it on?
reasonable to just trust all news articles or trust all data. Obviously, you should double check things or triple check things.
Right.
But I think just hand waving his argument because you're aware of some other
Can I
story where
explain
some
why I
journalist
hand
was
waved the
incorrect is
argument?
stupid.
Do you mind if I explain myself? So
Yes.
Walgreens, their loss to theft, I think last year was 564 million, which was 2.5% of their profits, right? This is more than both what Target and Walmart are being stolen from. And Walgreens still said that it was like a fucking bad excuse for it. So if Walgreens is losing more money via theft, I'm inclined to not believe that the other companies that are bitching about it actually have it that bad. Especially when they are making as much money as they are and theft isn't really affecting them on that great of a scale.
Wait, you're saying Walgreens isn't being affected by theft? Like they're not closing stores?
Yeah, they said that they literally went back.
It, right?
Yeah, they literally made a statement saying maybe we cried too much over shoplifting, and that they regret how they handled it and that they exaggerated about it.
So basically, you inferred it to every other business that said they've closed because of shoplifting because of one company that got it wrong.
No, I'm saying
exactly
that
what you
one
just said.
company
So
that
that's okay,
lost
yeah.
money from theft lost more money than the other companies, saying that it's
if-
not actually necessary to
what if-
shut down
I
as a
don't know if they
consequence of
got it.
that.
What if we just?
That doesn't negate the fact that other retailers have lost enough that they felt like they
True.
needed to close. But also, like even the original
is-
point with the article, like because it turned out the article that I was mentioning actually went against you anyway. It did show that organized retail theft was like in the tens of billions, and also that one of the top products that was stolen was infant formula for making drugs. So I
Tens
guess you
of
got your work
billions
done, but
isn't
whatever.
that much when we're talking about like every single shop. Wait, how much are we talking about though? Because tens of billions.
Max, just the original point. You don't need a case that's strong. You can simply make the inference that it is possible that other retailers are overblowing it because one was, and then you can leave that open from further investigation. You don't need to make the positive claim that they aren't, right?
Okay.
Right, and so far as I understand, right, your position has nothing to do with the size of the retailer, right? So whether it's some
No, it
mom and
does.
pop store,
No,
it
I made
does.
that-
Okay,
didn't I
what's-
make
what's
that
the
clear
cutoff
before?
then? Okay, well, I said so far as I'm aware. So if I'm correct, that's fine. So what's the cutoff? Is it they have to have like 2 locations, 5 locations, 10 locations?
The
Where
cutoff
does
is
it
how
okay
much
to
they'll
start
be
robbing them?
affected by it, and
How do you?
Hmm?
Okay, so how do you like figure out how they're going to be affected by it?
by seeing
how
how
would you
much
come to
money
that
that
understanding?
company would make otherwise, and how much shoplifting is actually affecting them. Because if it's a
so you'd
smaller
run some
thing,
kind of like some research to figure out how much allowing shoplifting
you'd
in this
use
specific store
numbers.
chain. Yeah, how much allowing shoplifting in this specific chain of stores would impact their bottom line, impact their stance in the community, impact their ability to hire, to keep prices low. And after you figure that out, if it's not meeting your threshold, whatever imaginary threshold that is, you just allow the shoplifting there.
I mean, yeah, if it's not like destroying the shop and they can still continue to exist, then yeah. And especially if it is like necessary and occurring from people who are like, you know, having to skip meals and so on. I think that's
well, okay, but you
permissible.
keep going to the.
Isn't that why they don't insure that?
necessity thing?
Isn't that why they don't insure shrinkage? They don't insure shrinkage because it's just like almost guaranteed to happen. So at a certain point, yeah, the insurance companies are letting it happen or allow it to happen.
What if they were making up the loss by increasing their prices? Would that be fine?
They already do that.
Yeah, exactly.
They've been increasing their prices without like it being related to shoplifting, and the theft is then a consequence of the shoplifting,
No, but you said
of the
We're talking
prices,
about
right?
isolating variables. Obviously, if the
Ali, you just conceded
leakage,
it was because of theft. Sorry.
if the leakage goes up, what they're prepared to accept, then they'll put their prices up.
Wait, did you just say that the insurance companies aren't insuring shrinkage? I mean, do you mean?
Yeah, they don't cover shrinkage.
No, they do, but you have to be careful because shrink can include anything from shoplifting from customers. It can include the employers or employees themselves, and then it also includes just items that are damaged. So shrink is any disparity that exists between the book inventory versus the actual inventory once they take accounting of it. And insurance companies are trying to prevent business owners from exaggerating how much loss is incurred due to theft instead of loss that's incurred due to their own administrative mistakes or damages.
For these studies, have any of these studies actually had access to the shrinkage reports from these different companies? Because as I understand it, they're typically pretty reluctant.
They lump
to share
everything
that
in usually.
Most of what we go with right now is either from the retailers themselves or from just like
No. I understand it's from the retailers, but do they actually expose their shrinkage, specifically their shrinkage values?
Not really. It's all rough estimates. That's why, like, the thing that makes up, it's about like 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, pretty much for each of those.
So this entire argument is apropos of no data, effectively.
Yeah, pretty much.
The data is all there are the losses.
Well, the data is inferred then, which is not great.
The other issue is that,
now we're trying to draw sweeping like conclusions about its effect on society or on the company or whatever. Wick, I got to run. I have another call to take, but thank you for moderating. Arrivederci. Thanks everybody for trying. Max, you're pretty good at this. You should do it again.
Thank you.
Cheerio.
Take care of yourself.
Okay. Usurp. What you got? Usurp? I don't know how to say that word. I know what it means though, but go ahead.
Usurp. How you doing, Wick? Thank you. I think my main question is for Max here. So I got in at the very end of the conversation right before you guys did your wrap up. And you said something about stealing based on the degree of necessity. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Well, I mean, I've named this example a number of times, but food insecurity, I think, can justify stealing.
Not food, anything but food.
You also said people are like deserving of like a certain level of comfort.
Yes, thank you, Doobie. Yeah, because you said a certain level of comfort. So, like, are you allowed to steal? Like, would you find it okay for people to go steal iPads?
I don't think that's a necessary level of comfort. No, I'm talking about things like literally things you need to like live properly.
That's
you know,
necessity. What's the comfort?
Yeah, that's like you need.
I think comfort, a degree of comfort is a necessity.
Principle, like the Aladdin principle, like you're allowed to steal like a loaf of bread, and I think for the most part, most people aren't going to actually care about that. But when you're talking about like retail shoplifting, a lot of times, yeah, people are stealing food. But I would wager or bet that the majority of the people actually going and committing retail theft aren't stealing food. And even the people that are stealing food will take a group of those people. They're just stealing a fucking Snickers from their local convenience store, or they're stealing soda, or they're stealing like the steak that they don't need to have, but they just want a steak. So would you defend things like that, or just the people who are literally starving and they need to feed their family?
Well, I think it depends, right? I mean, I wouldn't defend every single time somebody steals something, but I feel like you can justify certain things. Like meat has gone up way in price, right? It makes sense that somebody might have to steal a steak, and they might need the protein, right? And I think it's fair for somebody to be entitled to like a balanced diet, right? And not to have to eat the same
I feel
shit
like the
every day 'cause they
words
can't afford them.
have and need are doing a lot of heavy lifting in these sentences. So like What do you mean by they have to steal a steak?
Well, I mean, they to have a balanced diet and to have sufficient meat.
Okay, but I think you're avoiding
what
what he's asking, right? So we'll make it more simple. So if somebody needs protein, but what they steal is like a $1,000 A5 Wagyu, whatever the fuck, right? Like, is that justifiable from your perspective? When there were other cheaper options there on the shelf that they could have stolen, if they go for the most expensive thing or bought, yeah. If they go for the absolute most expensive thing, is that still justifiable to you?
I mean, I think it's like unnecessary, but I also think if it's set at an unjustifiable price, I don't know. But no,
you got to speak with your chest here. You got to actually have some conviction when you're talking. So I need to know if you're actually for like actual theft. So like, are you just?
I've made it very clear that I'm for theft within reason. I don't understand how you folks can't get that. Like I've said,
reason. What like
the
you're
reason?
Not defining, like it's a nebulous like.
Well, the reason is that there are like a large amount of people in America who are struggling, who don't get enough food, right? As a consequence of things like failed welfare systems, as a consequence of things like fucking the failed like capitalist system.
Wait, but you keep going to food when earlier you said that you could steal from LonerBox if you would have noticed it.
Yeah.
Like, so it's not just food.
I think even like retailers, there's a couple of quotes that like they seem to be saying that most of their losses are coming from organized retail theft. It's not from
exactly like the people going to Home Depot and stealing like 50 power drills. Is that okay?
No. And am I endorsing that? I said out of necessity. Do they need 50 power drills? What kind of question is that?
You're the one not defining what necessity is.
I defined what necessity is about 5 times over. If you can't hear me, that's like a you problem, you know? Maybe listen better.
I'm sorry, I forgot.
What if they're stealing the power drills to sell them and make a living and feed their family? Is that then justified?
I think that depends. I think that depends. If it's distributed
what if I made my
among
job shoplift and sell shit that I saw shoplift? Like, is that necessary? Is that like a necessity enough for you?
Yeah, it's Doobie's job. That's how he provides for his family.
Like if you're unemployed.
I would prefer if that didn't happen. This is why I'm.
You're being a fucking weasel. Just be direct.
I'm being a weasel. Well, I mean, look, I think the conditions that exist right now shouldn't exist.
The guy who's shoplifting probably prefers that he didn't feel the need to shoplift, right? But
I think they're just to translate. Sorry, Dewey, I'll help you though. I think the frustration that the guys are having is that you want differing back to this thing of like the conditions that make people feel like they need to steal to make a living shouldn't exist. But that's a kind of non-statement because everyone agrees with that in one way or the other. So I think they're asking whether it's morally okay to do, like, or morally justified to do it.
I don't really see...
Given that those conditions aren't changing anytime soon with a 50-50 split.
I mean, it depends on like a billion factors, right? Like, if it depends on if it's like a sustainable crime, something you can do without like ruining it for everybody else. It depends on how much harm it's actually doing to people, if there are people being directly harmed, or if it is just like such a massive conglomerate that they aren't affected by it materially. Like I think there are like guidelines to this, right? I'm not just saying anybody can do anything at any time, and I'm not going to make any absolute statements because it is something that depends, and it is something that you need to treat on a case-by-case basis, right?
So you're cool
what do you think about stealing the lady who stole $2,000 worth of meat from the shop?
I mean, I don't know because I don't know the circumstances there, right?
What circumstance would justify
that?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I don't know. I think it again, it depends. I think if you there are
what we're asking is
if you have immeasurable, unbeatable debt as a consequence of something that's fucked up and unfair, I think you could do larger scale. Like, as long as you try and minimize victimhood, you could try and steal more. But I think that would be hard to execute.
Minimize victimhood.
It minimizes the negative effects of it. If it's a place that can afford to get more of that resource easily, if it's a place where they won't like end up immediately leaving as a consequence of, you know, the theft that just happened, you know, then you shouldn't be doing it. But you should be be careful.
So I mean, when Destiny was on Twitter saying that like she was stealing all that meat to sell for a profit. And I think your response was, does Destiny think thieves reselling stuff to turn a profit aren't doing so to feed their loved ones?
Oh, wow. You know like my
justification.
Yeah, I mean, I think, no, because Destiny's point was that people that she was doing a crime and it had to be unethical because she was doing it to turn a profit, which I think is a really silly argument against people who are poor and can't afford food, because even if they do a crime where they do turn a profit, that profit can still be translated into food, right? And translated into other necessary resources, right?
It's not an argument against poor people. I hate that you're like, I mean, LonerBox brought this up earlier, right? Like, poor people are going to be the ones typically that hate this kind of thing the most because they live in the communities where this happens, right? So I don't think it's like a knock on poor people. It's a knock on thieves, right? So
well, I mean, there's a difference
like
between thieves who are poor people and thieves who are like people who don't need to be stealing, right?
Okay, so this is kind of the thing that I asked you earlier, right? So if this woman's like, she didn't have a job, she's unemployed. So what she was doing to get money for her family, for necessities, for clothes, whatever, right? Shoes for her kids, whatever, was just going to different grocery stores, stealing a ton of meat and selling it for a profit. Would you say that that's justified, or that's like what you would consider to be like a necessity for her?
I'd say it depends. I mean, it really depends. I can understand. Well, what's the question?
Depends
Max,
on what?
It depends. It depends on the effects of it. It depends on how sustainable the crime is. If she can, like, how much like it's gonna harm other people. It depends on her circumstances and how necessary, like how necessarily she needs to
I'm
get
curious
more
about
money.
something, actually. So this woman, I think she happened to be a black woman, right? And I think we're all aware of the stereotype that black people are like going to be more likely to steal or whatever. So
I mean, they're going to be more likely to be poor, yeah, and they're going to be more likely to be caught for crimes.
Please, so if this led to people in that area, right, looking at black people sideways when they came into the supermarket because she happened to be stealing there, and it built up the stereotype. Do you think that would be enough damage, right? So this like perpetuating this like racial stereotype would be damage enough that you would say that it's not justified?
This is called the model minority myth, where you say that people from any minority can't actually do anything bad because it might perpetuate a stereotype about them. You could say this about literally anybody. You could find some group they belong to and be like, aren't you letting those people down?
So is the answer no?
No, the answer is that if there are conditions that causes them to have to engage in that kind of thing, then that's no longer like as much their responsibility as it would be in a situation where they're not forced into doing that and where they're where they don't have circumstances which are.
Is it impossible to imagine a career shoplifter not causing harm? Because even if it's like negligible, like other customers might not have access to those goods for when they're in the shop. They're going to pay the cost through price rises.
Yeah,
they're going to pay the
people
cost
who are
through
career
increased security.
shoplifters should probably try and get like a way to obtain money that isn't going to end up regularly taking shit away from people. But people who shoplift are often people who are trying to like find work and they're struggling to because it's like hard to do in their area. Like that's a very common thing. I think I have the statistics for it. Yeah, problems finding unemployment is 32% of shoplifters, right? So like,
hey Max, I got a question I got to ask you though. So okay, would you justify this scenario? Somebody stealing, like we'll say somebody stealing from a big box retail store to send their kid to private school. Is that okay?
I think that's unnecessary. I don't think kids need to go to private school.
I don't think you'll find an example of that, but
no,
yeah.
I'm just trying to find a bar. I'm just trying to find a level because you said necessity.
Whoa, hold on.
You think I'm gonna be a fucking edgy socialist and be like, oh, you need to go to private school?
I don't know. I'm just trying to figure it out, but you're not answering any of the questions.
Hold on. So Wick, I actually had this discussion. I'm kind of with Carl Max up here, is because I do come from the hood, and I was talking to Usurp over here about this up in the waiting room. There's a group of people every Friday, and this has been since I was a child, right? Something that continues to live on today. They're called boosters, right? We in the hood we call these people boosters. This is the guy that's going to have the PS5 for $200 that you could get because he got it from the Best Buy, right? So anyways, but there's other type of boosters that do, like, we call them the meat man, right? He would come around every payday on Friday after he hit up probably every grocery store or whatever, and he would go and sell cheaper meats that he stole to the hood who didn't have access to that. Kind of a Robin Hood type of situation, and it didn't just apply to that; it applied to basic.
Robin Hood sell the stuff he was giving away.
Hey man, he gave it. So,
it was the missing chapter at the end of the book.
It's a part of the hustle. You know what I'm saying? You got to respect the hustle. But this is what did provide, especially in like places that were food deserts in the hood. And I'll put it like this: live in Portland, Oregon, MLK and Ainsworth. There's a Safeway right there on the corner. This is one of the to Lisa's argument that was in here earlier. Oh, it shuts down the places. No, it doesn't. That Safeway has been there. Is going to be there when I die, and this place gets hits up all the fucking time, dog.
What's the neighborhood like?
It's North Portland used to be. We used to be the Starks of Game of Thrones. All of North Portland was black as hell until like 2010. Then it got gentrified a little bit.
But it's like a shit neighborhood, I would imagine, right?
So you're okay with like one person doing this, like for his Robin Hood for his community by taking away from a Walmart, right?
Yeah, I mean, if it's providing
two people doing
access to a quality of life to people that may not necessarily, and this is just a
okay. So that's my okay. So you're okay with
children and all
so
this
you're okay,
stuff.
yeah. So you're okay with one person doing it for their. Are you okay with two people doing it?
Yeah. As long as if there's a supply, eventually the supply
20?
and demand. Hold on. 20, the supply and demand probably dies, right? A couple of those guys aren't gonna be able to sell shit.
No, then the booster's just gonna sell the steak for about $10 cheaper. How do you guys feel about that?
Wait. Sorry, there are always going to be people who want cheaper.
No, there's
free
not,
goods.
bro. Like you can look at markets like that are already illegal, like drug dealing, bro. If there's this is why we see gang violence, right? If there's too much supply, you gotta shore up that supply. You gotta cut that supply out.
How's the violence
in America? You can steal and drive for quite a while to different communities with those goods, and there will be people who are willing to either take them for free or pay less for them. What you're saying is it's basically okay for an unspecified number of people to just empty an entire store if they're doing it like Robin Hood.
This is a story as old as time, right? That people when there's a supply, when things are being choked up where another class of people can't get it, there is going to be somebody out there that is going to get it. And the only reason why we think we're seeing an uptick in this, it's just the same thing when we see racial violence. Everybody has a camera phone now. This shit has been since before you. I'm 38. This shit has been before you guys was born. This shit is gonna be before I was born, and it's still gonna happen after we die. Like it's just going to, man.
People have been
I'm just saying that.
I love this guy.
So I'm just saying, like, you do think it's okay then? Like, every product in every big store is like fair game. That it would be okay if just people went in there and just took what they needed and fucked
and
off,
I'm a consequence guy, right? I'm a very big consequence guy. So if you decide to take that risk and you decide that you're gonna, because listen, I used to be a street pharmacist, right? And there was a particular time where I sat down when I knew I was like, hey man, am I really about to fucking do this? And I sat there, I'm like, bro, I could go to jail, right? I was like, but the reason I did it was I had to take care of my family, right? I needed the money to provide for my siblings, right? I have custody of them.
Was it hard to get a job in the area you were in?
No, wait. Sorry, wait.
My job didn't provide enough money. I had a job, a full-time job.
But it was
but so rather than get marketable skills that would get you a better job, you decided to do something that would potentially destroy the lives of other people in your community
and break up your family.
It wasn't my community.
You said you had foster kids.
It would have potentially broke up my family, right? But I felt confident then.
But also killed people, right? Destroyed lives, destroyed other families.
Well, you're saying it assumes risk.
Definitely.
Don't classify what I did as killing people.
Just get a better job. The just better get a job argument.
You basically make your job.
Sorry, hold on. You cannot be using. You can't use the just get a better job argument if you're talking to somebody who's from an area where people are regularly stealing and where they're like poor, right? Obviously, businesses that are going to pay a lot aren't going to fucking move there. Like, what are these places?
Why aren't they going to move there?
Why aren't they going to move there? Because there's crime and because it's a fucking endless issue. Why is the crime there? Because of the American government and racist policies.
Crime is all. Hold on. The crime.
Hold on, wait 1 second, Max.
Because of classist policies, in fact.
This fucking. Oh, you can't talk. You can say this to somebody from this area. I'm from one of those areas. I grew up in East LA, fucking ghetto as fuck. Most of my family members are in gangs. Most people in these communities don't do this shit. Right, so this idea that we should be permissible because they're from like a poor area is fucking stupid.
We're talking about drug dealers.
I'm not talking about that. That's not even the point I made, though. The point is that you can't just tell people to get a better fucking job when they're in an impoverished area, because that's a lot harder to do.
Available in all of these communities. The government pours money into these communities constantly.
There are so many things, like stipulations that are like part of like being able to work further away from where you live right now.
Able to go all the time. Right, so like
during our age, no,
I doubt it.
Back in 2004, dog.
Hold on. I'm 35 years old. When I was growing up, I was poor as fuck. I had free community college available to me. I'm sure you did too. I'm
no,
sure you
at
did.
PCC, you always had to do the FAFSA and get a loan. Everything you had to pay for. If there was a
Bullshit.
program for that, I didn't know for it.
Okay, hold on. FAFSA.
No,
Okay,
there's
if you're
government
poor,
grants
if
for
you're
colleges.
poor, right, and you go to the government and you say, "Hey, I want to go to community college," they're gonna pay for your shit.
They will.
That has been the case for fucking decades.
Well,
So-
regardless,
so I
you
think-
know
I
my
think- I think
background.
this-
I didn't need
I
community
understand.
college. I had
I
a
understand.
scholarship. So
Okay,
at the end of the
but I
day,
understand.
but I
But
dropped
this-
out
okay.
because I got hurt, and that's where my opportunity
understand,
short.
but this
There's a
idea
lot of
that, like,
stories in that. Hold
it's
on,
like
there's a lot of
permissible
stories in
somehow.
that.
Community
like,
college is
destroy
only
the lives
free
of
in
the
some
people,
states. It's
destroy the
not
lives of
free
other people,
everywhere.
right? And to poison your community because you need money right now is, I think that's.
I wasn't
that-
poisoning my
okay,
community yet.
Journey before destination.
You were selling coke. You were
Journey
absolutely
before
poisoning your
destination.
community.
Nah, I didn't sell in my community. That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
so
you're
you
destroying
just
other
poisoned
communities,
other
destroying other
people's communities.
families.
You're saying those people wouldn't have gotten coke
Yeah,
otherwise?
I'll own that.
Even if it's a poor
Every
community.
little person that
Hold on.
every little
Hold on.
party
Hold on,
person that
hold
was
on,
at the
hold on,
bar
hold
that
on.
night. Yes.
Hold on, gang. We're getting low on super chats. Get those numbers up, right? You can't be stealing this content. Give me money. Okay,
Wait,
with that,
Wick,
I want to hear
Wick,
what Max
real
has
quick.
just real quick. I want to hear what Max has to say because Max had something to say. I was having a hard time hearing him. Max, go ahead.
Like terribly poor areas would probably even continue to exist even if like individual people stop doing it sometimes. There are other things that are causing the crime to happen rather than people just making bad choices. Like that's what it seems to boil down to a lot of the times with like these sorts of people is that it's just actually everyone in the community just being annoying.
The crime is done in the poor communities, but it's very
Are
rarely
you
done by
saying
the
that
poor
all the
people.
crimes are done by like rich people or something? These are like primarily crimes done by people who are earning like under 25 grand,
done
right?
by people making over 70,000 a year.
What?
Yo,
That-
wait,
that-
I
that-
really wish I could.
Wait.
Let me clarify that. Let me clarify that. There's a 2008 study from the American psychology people that says you are more likely to steal if you are making 70,000 or more a household income than you are if you are making 20,000 or less. That is just what they found. Yes.
5-star hotels are more likely to get robbed than 4-star and 3 and 2 and 1. Right?
I have data
that would
that
make
doesn't
sense.
agree with that though.
It makes
Are you
sense.
sure?
5 stars and we get robbed
Showing you
over.
what I got.
Yeah.
Listen, if you're gonna take the risk of going to jail for the rest of your life, you got to make sure that risk is gonna pay out. So yes, a 5-star hotel is gonna get hit up more than a 3-star hotel.
So when you're saying about risk, but it's also because of like the rich people are more likely to steal, it seems. But I was also just asking you. You're talking about risk, and you're saying like people who career shoplift from or like Robin Hood shoplift from a retailer are assuming risk. Do you think that risk is justified? Do you think the state is justified to be punitive
Justified
towards
to
people
them.
who shoplift en masse?
I think from my experience from the boosters I see, which most of them are generally homeless, right? There isn't a lot of like they feel that they don't have options, right? They feel that society has left them behind. They feel that they have a skill which they has seemed to pay out for them, and they use that skill, which is theft.
So when you say they assume risk, I'm asking you, do you think the state is justified to arrest them and like punish them for doing that?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay,
yes.
so it's just that's just every crime then, yeah. Like
yeah. Absolutely,
yeah.
they shouldn't get anything. I was just explaining this to Usurp. I played D&D. If you roll a nat 20 every single time, but you fuck around and get that nat 1, hey dog, you just got to pay your crime. And if I would have went to jail, same thing. No snitching, no nothing. I just did my time.
Every man for himself, eh?
Yeah.
So just
no
like-
communities. No wonder the communities are falling apart.
Ollie, do you have
Yeah, then you
something
complain about the police
presence?
presence.
Yeah, I mean,
You
I was
complain
just
about
gonna-
people not wanting to open up businesses
Right?
there.
Ollie,
No, no,
keep
no.
arguing about like
Ollie,
You've never heard me have this argument. This is not my argument.
Ollie.
Yeah, we keep arguing about like just like necessity, justifiability. Necessity, sure, everyone's gonna accept it with necessity. I think people do feel justified in stealing due to the cost of the goods that they're taking. So if we're gonna do like meats, for example, or like perishable goods, like grocery stores across America are throwing away 30% of their local goods. So like the argument would be if they sold their goods for 20 to 25% cheaper, they would probably incur less theft because the people wouldn't feel justified in stealing because the prices are so high, and they wouldn't be throwing away so much.
Safeway is 100% guilty of this. I know multiple Safeways throughout the nation that once their baked goods or anything that they cook, they dump it out in the trash and they pour bleach on it so the homeless people can't get to it. It's fucked up.
Like how do you argue that these grocery stores are feeling the effects of theft and grocery shopping shoplifting when they're regularly throwing away goods?
$10.
Well, they have to
$10
throw away the
fondue.
food if it's expired.
$10
Why not sell it for
fondue.
cheaper beforehand?
It's illegal.
$10.
They do
No,
that.
let me make
Wait,
this clear.
hang on. No, what you just said. They do.
$10 for
You can go to the back of the grocery store.
When I hear,
You'll find that shit for
when
sale.
I hear people say it's okay to steal because they have the money, have no leg to stand on when they say we live in an oppressive system. Theft is part of the system of oppression too.
Yeah, go off, usurp.
No, but you were saying that, like, if you go to the back of the grocery store, at least in the ones in the area I'm at, there's a discount rack of shit about to expire.
So, like,
so they do that, and then once they expire, you can't legally sell it.
I'm not sure how many of y'all have worked
What about the initial cost of the good?
What about it? Like, what do you mean?
So if it was originally cheaper, people wouldn't feel. People don't want to. People don't want to buy almost expired meat typically. So the people, and especially if we're talking about shoplifting, people aren't going to go shoplift. They're not going to go shoplift discounted meat and discounted product. They're going to chop for the they're trying to steal the best that they can.
Yeah, they're going to steal the T-bones.
Sure. So my argument would be that you would reduce the amount of shoplifting because people only feel justified because the price is so exorbitant, and then people realize that they're throwing away 25 to 30% of their produce anyway, so they feel justified in taking it because it's already like unassumed loss.
Do you think people steal candy bars?
Yeah.
Are they expensive?
No. Well, go ahead. Actually, it really depends because, like, an anecdote I brought up, yeah, they can be expensive. The Little Debbie's cakes went up literally 100% in cost.
I want to give.
So they went from $1.50 to $3. So I don't think people are stealing them out of a necessity because they can't afford it.
I'm not arguing necessity. I'm not arguing necessity.
Okay, because they're too expensive.
I want to hear from. I'm sorry. What's your name, sir? P something. New guy. I want to give you the space. Go ahead. What you got? Your time to shine.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. I don't know why people are arguing the data. It sounds like people are arguing that we should increase punitive measures for individuals when we know that we have data that we know that doesn't work. That's not going to reduce the crime of shoplifting. To your point, usurp, I wanted to ask you, who's selling that meat in the back of the store? Is it the store itself? Do they know that's happening?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, literally in the grocery store. Yeah, in the grocery store.
What if it's employees? What if it's employees who are selling that meat to make a profit for themselves without the store knowledge? That same meat that's being thrown away to be expired, is that theft?
The same food that's going to be thrown away to expire. Well, honestly, if you're like dumpster diving for it and then you sell it, no, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, but see, that's the thing with Safeway. These places like Safeway.
A lot of these stores, it's not okay to do that anyway. They have to throw away this.
Yeah, that's a store policy because
they also have to survey the dumpsters. They have to survey the dumpsters. They can't let people take food from the dumpsters. They're not allowed.
And they
won't do it sealed. They open it so it spoils. They won't leave it.
Because if somebody goes into the dumpster and eats the food and they get sick, they can sue the store. So it's a liability issue.
Is it?
Also, what you said about the deterrence, like, I don't know why you would say that because the new measures for organized theft were introduced just like last month. So we don't actually know if they're going to work or not.
Sure. And also we're conflating organized theft and petty theft. Every state has laws for the difference between petty larceny and grand larceny, and it's a price difference. We already have measures for this, so I don't know why we're talking about that.
There are no liability issues with eating garbage, by the way.
Yeah,
that's just wrong.
But we have data on some of this as well. I would like to quote really quick Ray Wilmer, a professor of retail practices in Syracuse. In an environment when you're looking for any improvement, shrink becomes an area to attack because all other costs are rising. It's also easier for companies and the public to blame theft for store closures and retail struggles than admit to stores over expansion, strategy mistakes, and customers abandoning stores for online shopping. It's more convenient if we were to blame it on people that we already consider reprehensible.
So do you think all these shops are just chaining up their goods and putting them behind like bulletproof glass and shit like that for like just for memes or what?
No, I think that theft is real and theft is bad, right? Nobody likes it. But we're also not addressing Baldur's Gate playing in the background. We're also not addressing the socioeconomic systems that cause larceny to happen. Like nobody wants to steal. We know it's bad. It's illegal, right? If you get caught,
You're so
fucked,
right, dude. Yo, I gotta leave. I'm so bored and I'm tired.
Everybody, Carl. One question.
Peace out,
one
brother.
question.
Nice
Go
meeting you,
on.
Carl.
No. Go on. Tell me your question.
If you're dumpster diving behind a grocery store, right? And you're trying to get some food and you get some food and then you try and jump out and you roll your ankle and you break your ankle. Can you sue the store?
If it's on their property, then yeah, but oftentimes they won't
So maybe
put their
that's
rubbish on
why
their
they do
property.
that.
I think that's a really stupid thing to say. Then stores will just do nothing because then people could hurt themselves like in the vicinity of it. It was lovely being here. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks.
I would love that.
That would be excellent content, and I want to make that happen. But for now, thank you for coming on. I hope you had fun. The opens are always chaos, but I hope.
Thank you for talking, everybody. I'm sorry if I was rude at any point. Okay, I don't actually mean it. I appreciate all of you. Thank you very much.
It was nice meeting you, Gangy.
Nice meeting you.
Take care, everyone. Bye bye. Oh my god, that was so boring. That got so boring. Walter White wasn't necessarily wasn't doing it out of necessity. His thing was ego and pride. Yeah, for sure. But also, people can empathize with the story of Walter White, and that's what I was trying to tap into when I said that. And I didn't. Did I bring it up during debate? I don't think I did. But when I brought it up to Sunday, I shut up, Menelaus. I look beautiful. Okay. When I brought it up to Sunday, my point was more to take advantage of the emotion, the kind of relatability of the Walter White story, with the kind of hopelessness of like, what if you just suddenly get hit with a massive medical bill and a bunch of horrible shit? What do you do? And a lot of people can relate to him kind of, you know, doing crazy shit, right? I'm amused that people got so annoyed that they came up to debate me on stupid shit, or that they donated to shit on me. I'm very amused at that, and I'm kind of flattered, you know? I like it when I get a reaction out of people I disagree with. I find that to be a very entertaining thing. So, you know. The idea that Lauren brought up about going to a soup kitchen, bro, it isn't hard after today when I was at the community center and saw someone who got denied food. It's wild to me. Yeah. Oh god, what a strange debate. I cannot wait to go back and look at the chat replay for this. I'm so entertained. Oh, but folks, exciting thing. So I had the question about if I should debate Mr. Dev. And people responded very positively to that. And even Brianna Wu is up in here, which is pretty cool. So that's cool. She's apparently a Karl Maxer now. The fact I've interacted with so many big names is so cool. Yeah, it's pretty wild. I don't know. I'm very fortunate. But yeah, no, it's fun. I'm really glad that I had generally good perception there. Like people seem pretty happy. Trevor is probably going to be black bagged by the feds one of these days. I think he just says shit. Yeah, definitely. I'm surprised the FBI hasn't gone to him already, because if they did, he would have talked about it. But I bet they like investigated him at some point. Crazy when oomfies start gaining traction. Yeah, I'm spooked. It's like kind of cool, right? It's cool and it's nice and it's exciting. It's also terrifying, you know? Like, more people being aware of me is more pressure to not be a disappointment to them in some way, you know? And that's a little spooky. Getting visited by the feds and immediately calling them bitch made on Twitter. He would do that. He would do that and it would be fantastic. I would love it. Trevor can only live in America because any country that doesn't have free speech would have thrown him in the ditch by now. Yeah, I'm kind of impressed that, like, I mean, Americans talk a lot about free speech and stuff, but like, usually they just mean hate speech, but then again, like, also the shit, you can't say some shit to people in some countries, you know? Like, I can't insult people here. Like, I insulted, like, Nazis at a protest, and I was like, and my mum told me, like, maybe be careful with that, because you can be arrested for it. Like, you gotta, it's, like, fucked up, right? Even when these people are like that. Congrats on the present Sunday nod. I know, isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? That was such a good thing. I'm into lawsuits from foreign people? That's so base. What the fuck? That's kind of awesome. You can call J.K. Rowling a lunatic, pedophile, transphobe, monster who eats babies and kittens, for example, in your pervious legal action. That's awesome. I mean, I just do everything until eventually somebody's gonna like fucking sue me for something, but it hasn't happened yet because I'm probably still too small. Wait, what do you want to bet? As soon as I start getting bigger, I'm gonna be sued for some dumb shit eventually. It's gonna be great. I have to decide, gun to my head, who is my favorite music MILF? I don't listen to enough music MILFs. Although I thought about it before, and I would probably have to say Adele. I'm very fond of Adele. She holds a special place in my heart. And she's pretty cool. Yeah. Oh man, I am sleepy. I should probably get some rest. It's 3 a.m. 3 a.m. already. This holy hour. And now hear you out. Katy Perry is pretty great. However, you got that white woman music taste. I can empathize with that. She has good music. Her music is like objectively pretty solid. I think we'll wrap up now. It was very nice having you here. This was an interesting experience. I'm happy to have done it though, and it was pretty fun. It's pretty cool. So thank you for dropping by. Thank you for watching. I know this was a long one and quite a grueling one. So, but yeah, thanks for being around. Sad you missed the debate. Oh, you should rewatch. I mean, I'm gonna get someone to edit it down to get the entertaining bits and cut out the shit because there's a good bit to work through. But there are good bits in there. There are definitely some nuggets. So yeah, take care everybody. I'll see you next time. Wait, when is next time? Today's Thursday. I'll let you know. I'll figure it out. Take care everybody. Thank you for dropping by, and I'll see you around.